Hello, everyone, and welcome to Small Screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian and Rachel. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about something that's not on the small screen, although it is only now. You can't see it in theaters, although,
Yeah.
in retrospect, missed opportunity, really, right? To not re-release this movie.
Right? Yeah, you are correct. Because I know a lot of people who said they immediately watched Rogue One.
It was
after watching Andor.
It was the number one most viewed movie on Disney Plus this last week.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So yes, Rogue One, a Star Wars story,
Mm-hmm.
which of course is a sequel to Andor Season 2, a Star Wars story.
Yes.
Which of course is the prequel to Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is in of itself a prequel to Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the original Star Wars film. So it's all kind of like an Ouroboros snake eating its own tail situation. But in the spirit of Star Wars, the story's always told out of order. So this is another good example of... Although I guess, okay, so... Do you remember when we talked about the machete order of watching Star Wars?
The machete order?
Yeah. You ever heard that term?
I have not heard
The machete order is to watch episode... how does it work? You watch... Okay, so you watch A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go back and watch episode 1, I think.
Okay.
And then... I think that's how it works. I think you watch episode 1... 1 through 3, I think, and then you watch episode 5 when then you find out about Vader being Luke's father.
Okay.
And then it's like, oh, then you get all this new context about that, and then you watch Jedi, and then everything after that doesn't really matter. But
right.
Anyway, it's this like context of like trying to watch Star Wars in a way that like made it make more sense to view that way. And most people would agree that that's dumb to watch it that way.
Right. Wouldn't you have to watch 5 before watching 3, though?
All right, yeah. So maybe it's 1 is where it's 4, 5, then 1 through 3, then 6.
That makes sense.
I think so. You're like, oh, it's his father, and then you're like, and then you learn about the father,
and then you go
come
back. Okay, yeah.
and then he's redeemed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, you can't watch 3 before 5 because
totally. That would ruin it.
Yeah.
So, because then the Luke is born in that.
Yeah.
One.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. That's all to say that there's a whole new like method to consider when watching this content in which order. Because like, do you watch Andor and then Rogue One, or do you watch Rogue One and then Andor?
Right.
In the release order.
Fun fact: my coworker was telling me that so his girlfriend had never. I don't think she's seen the original trilogy.
Okay, crazy, but all right.
Yeah, like just not a huge Star Wars person, which is fine. But so they watched Andor, and then they watched Rogue One, and Rogue One was her first introduction to like Darth Vader, to like strong Darth Vader. Yeah. So that was, she's like, oh, like he's actually like he's really scary. And it's just like,
that's so funny. Yeah, because you wouldn't really get that impression if you just watched A New Hope, where he literally just steps on a robe and he's like, where did he go?
So maybe she has seen the original stuff and, and it was kind of like, oh, why is he so scary or whatever. But yeah, like that was her first like big introduction as to like how.
And that scene wasn't originally in the script. They added that later. And it was reshoots that added that. There was
Into
lots of
Rogue
reshoots
One?
for Rogue One. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
When they brought on Tony Gilroy, who kind of ghost directed this movie,
Mm-hmm.
they did a lot of reshoots, and which is why the original trailer includes footage that doesn't make it into the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But anyway, that's all to say that I wonder if so. Kara, for instance, she watched Rogue One after watching Andor, never having seen Rogue One.
Okay.
But she also fell asleep through a lot of Andor, so it's like it's not that different.
Yeah, that's true.
But I guess I would in theory, I think Rogue One makes more sense. Is a better movie after Andor.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll talk about more about that
Yeah.
later. So I think you could get away with, and unlike I think with the prequels, which I think you should watch the original trilogy, then the prequels, then the sequels, or whatever order you want to do it.
Like release order, yeah.
Yeah, release order makes more sense because you just get all this additional context and yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie doesn't really work on its own as well.
Right.
In my opinion. So anyway, we'll get into all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here to talk about. A Rogue One Star Wars story. Anyway, little bit of housekeeping. So obviously we just did 4 straight weeks of Andor. Really, really fun. Super sad that it's over.
Yeah.
What did we say last week about it's like a funeral? It's like you're happy to have had the moments.
Celebration of life. Yeah.
Sad that it's over.
But sad that it's over. Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's like a cliche line for movies, right? Don't be upset. Happy that you had the moments. What's the phrase? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Is it the loved and lost one? Like it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all? Or...
It's like that. It's like that. It's on that it's on that level where it's like.
I know people make that stupid joke now, and it's like, oh, maybe it was about the friends we've
made along the
way, right? But then they make that joke about other stupid stuff now. But
yeah, maybe the Force is just the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's basically that. That's our feelings on Andor at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super well reviewed. It's the best. It's the most critically acclaimed Star Wars project since A New Hope, basically.
Wow.
And probably, as we said before, probably the best Star Wars since A New Hope. So, no shade at Empire, which is obviously maybe the best of the movies.
Yeah.
But this is a whole new. It's we've entered a whole new world. We've moved beyond what we thought Star Wars was. Our sphere has expanded to include all this new stuff. So anyway, that's all to say. We're going to talk about that context with Rogue One in a moment here. But what's happening next month, or what's happening next in general? Next week will be Tales of the Underworld. We'll be back to cover that, which dropped on May the 4th, but we were covering Andor. Didn't make sense to cover both. So we'll come back, cover Tales of the Underworld. Then we're going to take a short break from the Star Wars stuff. The main show, the Tower of Babel podcast, is still on temporary hiatus. So for all of our Patreon supporters, I'll be pausing Patreon payments for next month. For what month is it now? May? So June.
May, yeah.
So we'll be pausing them for June. And I will work on getting at least some interim bonus content in the meantime with some fill-in stuff or whatever we got to do while I continue to work on the larger concept.
Mm-hmm.
What do we know what the next Star Wars thing is?
I was looking that up. I feel like it's all 2026 because there's Mandalorian and Grogu.
This year just started.
I know. I feel like I don't know. Did we get a release date for the Maul animated stuff? I feel like it's all 2026. We
don't, but it's probably next year. I think that's next year also.
Yeah, so it's Mando and Grogu is 2026. Ahsoka season 2 is up in the air.
And that's also probably next year.
Yeah, so I don't think we
it's
really
filming now.
Have anything.
So I guess unless they surprise us with something, we'll have to fill the time with doing something like a stack ranking of all of our Star Wars shows, or
we could do something.
There's a bunch of different ideas that we can bandy around, but
yeah.
No breakdowns and reviews for I guess a year, which is
kind of wild.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I feel like we just had so much content for so long that our breaks were maybe a couple months, right?
Yeah. Now I feel like that's on Lucasfilm. You can't leave gaps that long.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the podcasters going to do? Come on.
Yeah. What are we going to take a vacation?
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
And then I guess it's important we should update everyone on the Jet situation. They lost.
Yeah. Big sad.
Yeah, it was extra sad because of the whole Shifley's dad dying thing.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly
big sad.
It's a little bit less sad when you consider that the reason that they were on the penalty kill in overtime was because Shifley made a stupid decision to.
Don't blame him.
Well, it was a bad choice. I mean, it all, and then also one of your best defensemen makes a terrible decision in overtime, and then it's in the back of the net. And it's over. So it's like,
yeah.
But he never even got a chance to play in overtime. In Game 6,
told somebody also missed a very open net.
Appleton, who's the worst. Okay, so this is just a short hockey segment, but. If the Jets re-sign Mason Appleton, I will lose a lot of faith in this organization because he's so redundant and replaceable. Like, what's he like? There's so many other players within the organization who can fill that role and do a better job than his slow ass. He's so slow, Rachel. It's unbelievable.
I didn't even know his.
He probably skates at the same speed I skate at.
I've never seen you skate, but you are on the.
I play a lot of hockey. I play about 4 games a week.
You are on a team called the Turtles, so
yeah, that's true.
I assume you're not very fast.
Yeah, don't dox me. But like, yeah, no, I mean,
dox you. Yeah, your beer league team.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, we should get. We need to figure out a way so we can get enough sponsors, so we can not just sponsor the show, but also
sponsor a beer league team. That'd be hilarious,
right?
I'd be all over that.
Or maybe I get the podcast. We get so many sponsors that the podcast can then sponsor the beer league team.
Yeah.
Right. That would be sick. Have a bunch of small screen Star Wars jerseys.
That'd be great.
There. Yeah, that's great. Anyway,
everybody would have to have Star Wars names on the back.
Oh, sick. Oh, great idea. Everyone has a different character name.
Yeah.
Who would I be? Cassian. No, that's too soon. That's recency bias. Anyway, the Jets are out of the playoffs, so it's over. So I'm over hockey now for the rest of the. It was already waning, even despite the Jets being in the playoffs. I was like, I'm over it. It's been going on too long because we're in the middle of May.
Yeah.
So the Stanley Cup won't be awarded till the middle of June, and that sucks. So
yeah,
whatever.
Big bummer. Also, sorry to all the Leafs fans out there.
I'm not sorry for that. I'm not sorry about it.
I'm like kind of sorry for my dad.
Oh, is he? I'm sorry. Then I'm sorry.
My
just
dad
for him.
is 70, and he has a T-shirt, and it's a Leafs T-shirt, and it says on it in giant letters, "Just once before I die." I'm like, Dad.
Oh man.
So.
Yikes.
Yeah. I was like, okay,
well,
Dad.
There's only 3 consistents in this world: death, taxes, and the Leafs losing in the playoffs. So, but it's funny, I don't take any joy in your dad's pain. I do take joy in like the joint pain of Leafs Nation, just because they're the worst fan base.
Yeah.
And we have to endure them nonstop.
Yeah.
24/7 on every sports channel. It sucks. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
I also blame the Leafs that we never got good playing times during the Jets
oh yeah, that's true
run.
Because they always get the
prime time, and we get 8:30 starts.
Yeah, that's right. It's never an inconvenience for them ever.
No.
Yeah, but they have the most people, so it only makes sense. Screw that. Anyway, so that's the preamble. There won't be any more Jets interruptions going forward.
Yeah.
And we only have one show coming up for next week, and then who knows? But
yeah.
Anyway, that's the plan. Okay, so. Let's talk about Rogue One. The log line is as follows. In a time of conflict, a group of unlikely heroes band together on a mission to steal the plans to the Death Star, the Empire's ultimate weapon of destruction, which is appropriate. Do you know what the original working title for this movie was?
Ooh.
When it was like first conceived. If you watch the special features for Rogue One, you might catch it. Because it's not said out loud, but it's
I don't think I know
seen
this.
on a script. It was called Destroyer of Worlds.
Oh.
Which actually adds a lot of context because obviously that's a line from Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it's not from Oppenheimer. He popularizes that term when we think of I Become Death, Destroyer of Worlds. We think of Oppenheimer mostly.
Okay.
And a couple of the characters in this movie are like, what if Oppenheimer, but in Star Wars, right? So like Galen Erso and Orson Krennic, and like they're kind of like different versions of that same caricature.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's interesting. So John Knoll, who joined, this is crazy, by the way. He tells the story about how he started working for Lucasfilm.
Okay.
This would never happen today. This the world that these people grew up in. Is gone. Okay, because this guy, John Knoll, he was visiting Los Angeles with his dad on a business trip, and he was like, I don't know, in his late teens, early 20s, something like that. He opened up a Anaheim phone book, found Lucasfilm in the phone book, and called them.
Yeah.
And said, "Hey, I'm a like aspiring model maker, filmmaker person. Can I'd like to work for you guys." And they're like, "Yeah, come down, take a look at everything. We'll show you around."
Yeah. What?
So yeah, they just invited him over to this guy, the random guy that phoned them on the phone, came down, and they just showed him around all of the Skywalker Ranch and stuff or whatever. Because this was between.
But who was his dad?
Just some guy. He worked, I think, in Los Angeles, but
okay, but he wasn't like anybody.
I don't
big.
think so.
It's not nepotism.
I don't think it's nepotism. I mean, it's possible. The story sounds unlikely. It sounds like the story a nepo baby would tell.
Yeah,
when they don't know that their dad was like, "Yeah, I called them and I told them they had to give you a job."
Their dad was actually this like hotshot lawyer who knew a guy who knew a guy. Yeah.
But anyway, this is after A New Hope, but before Empire Strikes Back. So they were still They were still relatively less.
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't as big.
I mean, Star Wars is the biggest movie in the world, but they hadn't become what they are.
Yes, I
now,
see.
Obviously.
I see.
So, but either way, it's like, really? You just called them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wild.
Fuck you, John Knoll.
Hey, he took it.
He gets a writing credit on this because he wrote a spec script called Destroyer of Worlds, and then he kind of like talked about it with some folks internally at Lucasfilm, and they're like, "You should pitch this to Kathleen Kennedy."
Yeah.
And so John Knoll, the model maker, who by that time that he pitched the story, much like more in the Disney era when Kathleen Kennedy had taken over, was like head of that, like the art department and all these different things. He was like much higher up on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he pitches Kathleen Kennedy on this idea for Rogue One, which is this like World War II adventure film about stealing the plans for the Death Star, based off of the one line in the opening crawl of A New Hope.
Right.
And Kathleen loves the idea. She's like, "This is a great idea. This aligns with what we want to do with these like standalone movies that we're trying to make and that we killed with Solo." And so they kind of been like, she's like, I think we want to make this. And he's like, wow. He was like all blown away. And then he starts working with some of like John Liu, I think I can't remember his name now. The other like main art director guy at Lucasfilm. And they start doing this like side project. So they start developing some of the art assets and stuff before they have a director, before they have a final writer.
Gotcha.
And all this stuff. So they bring on Gareth Edwards. They're all excited about Gareth Edwards being this big Star Wars fan. He talks about how he did a trip to Tunisia to see like the Tatooine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because Star Wars has such a good track record of hiring Star Wars fans to make their movies, it's always worked out so well. And then so the movie's being developed, and then about halfway through, they're not liking it. It's not working, and then that's when they hire Tony Gilroy to come on, make some adjustments to the scripts, and then they do a bunch of reshoots. So Gareth Edwards gets the full director credit. It's not split in any way. Tony Gilroy gets a full writer's credit on this. John Knoll does as well. And then Chris Weitz, who I guess did some other spec script stuff or did some other script doctoring. So, yeah, interesting kind of backstory to this movie. Ultimately, like, this is a great example, in my opinion, of a movie that like has a brilliant concept. From the get-go, but also could be a trap because it's easy to be like, oh, this movie writes itself. We're stealing the Death Star plans, but then like you could easily make it shitty, in my opinion. So this works out because it's not only like, oh, they had a good, brilliant like seed of idea coming off of Lucas's concept of the opening crawl, but also they brought in the right people to make it happen. And I think ultimately not to like undercut Gareth Edwards, but that's what Lucasfilm did. So I'll just continue on that path, which is to say that Tony Gilroy really saved this movie, and you can tell because there's parts of this movie that are like, there's lines of dialogue and there's pieces of this movie that are clearly like a step above. And relate so well into Andor, so that when all the pieces fit together much more nicely.
It's so good.
There's lots of connections to Andor for obvious reasons.
Obviously, as there should be.
And we'll call them out as we go through it. So I guess the first thing that we should talk about is when was the last time you saw Rogue One, and what did you think of it when it came out?
Okay.
Or last time you saw it? Or both?
Yeah, so I would say like I saw Rogue One when it was released in theaters, obviously.
Same.
Back in what year?
2016.
2016.
December
Okay.
2016. That's when they were still doing Christmas releases for Star Wars movies,
yes.
and I would really like them to go back to doing that.
Yeah.
It's way more fun to see Star Wars movies around the holiday season.
It is.
It just is.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was almost 10 years ago though now. So I would have been 26. Yeah, no, I remember like very much enjoying it, but I remember being obviously the Vader scene was insane. That always stood out. Just even like anytime I thought back on Rogue One, that's like the main pop out.
Yeah, oh, I spelled that wrong.
of the film. I don't remember the CGI looking as bad as it does now. They should go back and fix that a little bit. You're right, Tarkin looks weird. It's because his eyes are too shiny.
There's a bunch of things. Also, his lips move weird.
It's not even the lips. He's just too shiny. That's kind of what I was like. I'm like, why are his eyes so like? He looks like an alien. So yeah, you are correct. That doesn't necessarily hold up that well. But I just remember being like kind of a gut wrenching story because like everybody dies, right?
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy, yeah. And you're not that you're not expecting it, but you're kind of not expecting like everyone to die when you're watching that.
I mean, okay.
I also remember
really almost. It's true. There's rarely any people. There's really almost no one survives.
Yeah,
in the movie.
I also remember Chirrut being way older, but that's probably because I was way younger
Oh,
when I saw that movie.
maybe.
Like watching it even the second time, I was like, I always like envisioned him as old, like 50. Not that 50 is old, but I always thought he was like 50 plus 60.
Well,
like he was
how
like
old is the actor now? Is the question.
He's young. He looks like in Rogue
Donnie
One,
Yen, yeah.
he looks like he's probably in his late 30s in this movie.
Well, so that movie came out just over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It does not say how old he is.
Yeah, it does. Go back. 63.
Okay.
1963.
So he was born in 63. Okay, do the math. Well,
73, 83, 93, 2003,
okay.
2013.
Yeah.
So he was 50.
Yeah.
He doesn't look 50
He doesn't
in that
look 50,
movie.
but yeah, he's Asian.
50 something.
like,
yeah.
Asians never look old until they look really old.
Yeah.
That's basically.
He does not look 50 in that movie, but
no, he doesn't. And he's also an action like kung fu
yeah, he's in like crazy
artist.
good shape.
So he does like he's a great actor. The fact that they got Donnie Yen for this role is actually like pretty awesome. And they talk about this in the behind the scenes stuff, the bonus features for Rogue One, which is that they felt like they were really fortunate to get Donnie Yen and Wen Yang.
Yeah,
for
Baze is so cool.
And did you know that Wen Yang didn't really speak any English at all?
Really?
Barely any English before he started with this movie.
Wow.
His son apparently spoke some English, so he helped him read the spec script that he got and told him he had to do it.
Yeah.
Which I always love when the kids are like, no, you have to do it.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I mean, it definitely stands up, and I feel like the movie just hits harder now.
Yeah, well, because
it did.
I mean,
not that it didn't hit hard back then, but it's just.
I think it adds a little bit of. Are you talking about just in general, or are you talking about Donnie Yen and Wen Yang?
Oh no, just in general. Like the movie hits harder in general.
Okay, we'll talk more about them later.
The acting is like fantastic.
Those
characters were always good.
Yeah, well, they're not as developed
cool.
enough, I think. Ultimately,
no, like you wish you had more time with them, like we do in Andor, right? Like it would be so fun to get more of these characters because you only have them for such a short amount of time, and then they're gone. So, and then obviously Melshi hits.
Melshi gets like 2 lines of dialogue in the whole movie.
I know, right?
Isn't that funny?
Oh, Melshi.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I guess my general thinking on it was when this movie came out, when Rogue One first came out in December of 2016, I remember coming out of the theater thinking, this is in my top 3 Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's Empire.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I guess, what year was Last Jedi? Is the year after 2017?
I can't
want to say.
remember.
And anyway, it was just like it was like maybe it's like A New Hope, this one, or it was like Empire, Revenge of the Sith, and then this one.
Yeah.
So it was floating, but I was like, this is top tier Star Wars. I was so excited. I was blown away by the action sequence at like the climax of the movie, which I think still is absolutely badass. And I remember thinking how cool it was seeing the Death Star blow stuff up.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a planet going poof.
Yeah, like
you know?
from the actual planet that they're like on. Yeah.
Well, and just in the visual of the Death Star, like in atmosphere and maybe looking up and eclipsing and all this stuff, it's like really cool.
Yeah.
So I just remember thinking this is a cool, really, really cool movie about a character of Jyn Erso that I don't really care about that much. And now it's basically a movie about Cassian that it's like, okay, this is an extension of Andor, and I'm like, it's not that it's like a bazillion times better. It's just that enough better that like it's really solidified that like top 3 ranking for me, where it's probably now like Empire, episode 8, then this one.
Yeah,
It's probably my ranking. And it would be interesting if we had to include. There's another podcast I was listening to. They're like, should we rank all of our Star Wars stuff, including shows, and like trying to figure that out?
Yeah, right. That's so hard because it's just I have so much different like nostalgia for different things and different things I like.
Well, that's what makes it fun.
I would have to take like each season of each show.
Yeah, you have to take each season because like
yeah,
Mando is like wildly inconsistent in quality from season 1.
Well,
to
not
season
even
3.
just like Mando, like. I like the last season of Clone Wars.
The last season of Clone Wars, which
is so good.
Yeah,
and, like,
compared to the first season of Clone Wars, which sucks balls.
Yeah, which is just goofy and silly.
Yeah,
but yeah, exactly. But
yeah, right. Well, we'll have to think about that. But either way, I'll just say that like the recontextualization that we get of Rogue One from Andor makes it a much better experience.
Yeah.
It refocuses the story. I really feel like on Cassian, even though he's not the main character of the movie.
You don't feel
you
like
could
he
argue
is?
that Jyn is the main character of the movie.
I feel like
but they
split.
get pretty equal screen time,
Yeah.
I think. But like even then, it's like I think it just gives it a lot more like thrust and momentum.
Yeah.
From the get go, and the movie has like a really great pace, or it just like picks up and picks up and picks up and picks up until it reaches this big climax at the end, and then it's over. But in general, it's like I think it ties it a lot better to the rebellion as a concept because like. Mon Mothma has like 2 scenes in this movie.
Yeah, right?
Right?
I know. It is so nice that we get Andor, the series, because we get way more Mon Mothma, and she's such a great character.
And Saw gets
Yeah.
one great scene, two scenes basically. So like all that stuff gets much more fleshed out, so you care about that stuff that much more.
Yeah.
It just gives a weight to everything that didn't really have as much weight. Like because we talk about the prequel problem of like plot armor, right? So the only thing in Rogue One that has plot armor are the plans.
Yeah, really.
Basically.
Actually,
and like Mon Mothma. But she's not on the beaches.
No,
so
she's
like,
not there. So yeah, right? It's like everything else. But that was like kind of the surprising part when I first saw that movie. Like I didn't think everyone was gonna die in Rogue One.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Yeah. But so, you kind of have that
because most movies
shock
don't
value.
follow that, don't do that. They
No.
don't do, yeah.
You don't wipe out like all your like
Your
main
whole
characters,
cast,
your
yeah.
whole cast, right? But it's
But I guess if
wild.
you're moving into a movie that was originally made, like if the sequel to your movie that you're making was made in 1977, it's like you're not going to be able to include those characters in the movie that was already made. Although, let's do another special edition of A New Hope where we include Andor characters in the background.
Like who though? They're all dead.
Yeah, no, like
Clea.
Clea's there,
Bix.
obviously. Bix has got Bix's baby is going to make an appearance.
Yeah.
Who else? Clea, obviously.
The CGI them in.
Yeah. And have you already seen some of those posts where being like, in my headcanon, this one female officer in the rebellion is Clea. And it's like,
Clea,
well, she actually already has a name, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's like how they there's that one
trooper.
The one trooper
Jedi.
that people are like, oh, it's Rex. Like,
well, they did debase his look
Endor.
off that one trooper on Endor, so
it's
not like it's a mistake. And it's in my headcanon that is Rex. It makes it more fun.
It does make it more fun. But,
that guy also has a name. But because every character in Star Wars, even if they have no speaking line, has a name.
Has a name, yeah.
Okay.
Not smart to do that.
Well, it's fine. It's if you're Tony Gilroy, you'll just ignore that stuff and just do whatever you want. He's like, I was so disappointed that I found out that somebody had done a backstory for K2, and he's like, well, K2 is my character, so I'm just gonna ignore that and just do my own thing.
Do my own
It's like,
thing.
okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
my coworker did point out one plot hole,
which is what when he says that he was never in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he could just be lying.
Yeah, I was like also thinking like maybe he meant like in a rebellion prison, like
Oh, he's never been locked up by Saw.
by Saw.
specifically.
He's like, I've never been locked up by my own team, basically like my own
Right.
side, or
Or
like,
again, he's
in
a
this
spy.
lunatic like kind of scenario. Be like, yeah, he's nuts. Like this is I've never been in this
Yeah.
situation
Right.
with a weird brain monster.
There's a million
and-
ways of like if anything,
Yeah.
Star Wars is a really good at recontextualizing lines that
Yeah.
in theory make no sense in the future when you're like what I said was true if you consider it from a certain
from
point
a certain
of view.
point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
You said my dad was dead.
Yeah.
You said he killed him. Yeah, about that.
Yeah. From a certain point of view.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in like spiritually he killed him. Inside. Anyway, so that's that's kind of our setup. Where were we? Where are we now with this movie? I'm still really stoked about Rogue One. I think it's just like again, that pacing is so relentless. I love it.
Yeah,
it is a little
stop.
funny where it just gets, if you think about it, it's kind of like you're just following Krennic around for a whole movie.
Yeah, right. That is true. Yeah, but it's funny because it almost feels too fast because we just came off Andor.
Oh yeah,
and
it's
that's such a
just
slow build.
jump, and there
Yeah.
are some like
But-
connecting tissue scenes, but like they're pretty far, like few and far between, and
Yeah.
they're pretty short. So you get very little. I think that is the one biggest flaw in this movie, and why Andor adds so much to it is because Cassian becomes a fully developed character where he's
Yes.
not in the movie before,
Right.
and Jin and Chirrut and Baze and all those, they don't get that development and then
No.
feel kind of hollow in comparison.
Yeah.
And it's not really fair because you don't have 2 seasons of a TV show to build them up, but
right.
that's the situation. It just doesn't have that same weight. So
Yeah.
you ride on the coattails of Cassian Andor in this movie. I
Yeah.
feel like. But yeah, I think like Andor succeeds in doing what all great prequels can do, which is improve the original film, make it better in retrospect.
Yeah.
Right. So where do we want to go next?
Do you think it's too bad that we didn't spend a little bit of time in the Andor show on Jeddah so we could see Chirrut and Baze? Do you think that would have been too much? Like make the world too small?
I don't know
or,
if
like not have Cassian run into them, but like have a scene with like
I think that's too
Saw
much. I think that
and,
feels
yeah.
too like Easter eggy.
because I don't
like
get
forced.
not that I don't get it, but they don't work with Saw, right? Like they're
No,
not
they're
part
just-
of Saw's
They're
team.
they're guardians of the wills, which
Yeah.
means they were like warrior monks that
Right.
worked at the Jedi Temple,
which they're mining,
which they're mining. There's nothing,
Yeah.
and as Andor says, there's nothing left to protect.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Baze loses his like faith basically,
Mm-hmm.
and whereas Chirrut obviously does not,
Right.
and like doubles down into it. So they're not really associated at all
Yeah, with Saw's
with
group.
Saw's partisans.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so for me, what makes this movie work so well is that it feels like you're stepping into like week 5 of Andor season 2.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
here's another movie. Here's another 3-episode arc
Yeah.
that now completes the story in a more
Mhm.
kind of official capacity.
Maybe that was the point.
I mean, it kind of was because they had already said we wanted to lead directly
Into the right.
and we've already talked
so,
a little bit about this on previous episodes about how it's nice that it has the same philosophy of fitting neatly into the thing
Yeah.
that it's prequeling,
Yeah.
right? So obviously Rogue One fits nicely into A New Hope.
A New Hope. Yeah.
And Andor fits nicely into this film. Most of the other prequels don't have that same context. In fact, like episodes 1, 2, and 3, like the prequels, they all have massive time jumps in between each of those movies.
Yeah. Clone Wars fits in though.
Yeah, I mean, does it? Like, it
The
doesn't. I mean,
series?
yeah. So it happens in parallel, but there's no like
Yeah.
you can't just like end Clone Wars and then start Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. No, you.
It doesn't
can't.
have that like natural connection point.
No.
And you could watch it in like, if you really want to do something crazy, you could do this like self cut where you like cut in these different elements to make it one like cohesive story.
I've heard of like that where it's like, oh, if you want to watch everything in chronological
Stop at this
order,
moment, then
Yeah.
go over to the like
Yeah. It's
right, or watch
wild.
these things in parallel at the same time. It's like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, well, I like it's fun to do like, hey, this thing is happening at the same time as this other thing. It does make it harder to do that natural handoff.
Of course. Yeah.
Um,
But this works.
yeah.
Worked real well.
Yeah, it does work really well. I mean, again, they had an idea. They executed on it. It totally works. It's self-contained. It fits within this. As Tony Gilroy says, it's like knowing where the story ends is very freeing because you can just do whatever you need to do because that gets you to that point, and you can like reverse engineer it and do all those like the writer stuff.
Yeah,
that makes it fun.
All the writer stuff.
Yeah.
Almost like Easter eggs.
Yeah, but like from a character perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like again, it's like this the next thing. The one thing they talk about in the Andor behind the scenes featurette from last week, which I didn't have a chance to watch before we recorded our episode. They talked about how they wanted to turn the like score in the very final sequence of Andor.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to turn down the electronic sound of Andor and turn up the orchestral sound that comes into the main films.
Yeah.
And they kind of do that. And in fact, the final, this is mentioned, which is like this great, I feel like, meta thing, which is the music that they play, that they riff on a little bit in the Andor finale, is the music that plays when Luke and Han get their medals.
Oh, okay.
So it's it's like, think of this moment where everyone is celebrating this big victory for the rebellion and all the people that were not awarded medals, including Chewie.
Yeah.
In that
just these
sequence.
two guys who showed up at the end.
Two dudes.
Yeah.
Who weren't even here a week ago. Yeah. And now they're in charge of a bunch of stuff and getting our biggest awards.
Yeah.
That must have been painful. That must have been painful. If you're writing like an Andor season 3 and you're like following up on the events of, obviously Cassian's dead, but you're following up. You're picking up with Clea, and she's like, she would be pissed.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, who are those assholes?
Like, I'm sure Clea would find something to do to help, but she would be so annoyed with these like posers, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes all types though to rebellion.
It's true.
All right. So the other thing I remember thinking about this, and this is something that's been talked about a lot by different Star Wars YouTubers and podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites, Eckhart's Ladder, talks about how Rogue One was so great at introducing new ships and troopers and like expanding the world of Star Wars in a really like tidy way. So you get to like introduce new types of TIE fighters, and the U-Wing was invented, and that cargo ship was invented, and they did Krennic's ship is new, the Death Troopers are new,
the
Shore Troopers are new,
yeah.
This like variant on the AT-AT is new. They said like they did all these like really interesting visual stuff that expanded the world for people who are like ship nerds and all that stuff that was there for them, but for everyone else it's just like more Star Wars, and it fit naturally in. It reminds me of this story that I remember hearing, and I don't know how true it is, it might be apocryphal, but basically one of the tests that Lucasfilm applies to new concept artists is to create a new ship or like vehicle design that feels like it fits into the Imperial era of ship creation, but is completely new. Right? So that's where you get ideas like the U-Wing and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
Which is fun.
Huh.
Yeah. To test your creativity, but also your ability to work within like the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does it feel like it fits into that stuff? Can you work within the kind of confines of the Star Wars universe? Yeah, and then I guess back to that idea of like chasing Krennic around in terms of like the concept of the movie. I think it's less funny when you think about it as being like how close the Empire was to winning at multiple stages along the way. And then I saw this post the other day. It was like, hey, just a quick reminder. They did all this work to get the Death Star plans. They put it into R2-D2, and then R2-D2 immediately went back to the Death Star carrying the plans.
Yeah.
And then they got out of there with like the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
Before they delivered them to Yavin, and then the Death Star. It's like this whole chain of events that's like too close to call. It's just under their nose. It's kind of like it makes it a little exciting too to think about it like that. But, yeah.
Immediately goes back to the Death Star.
Yeah. And
such
like
an R2 move.
It is classic R2 move.
Yeah.
It's just like the like Star Wars loves to like put people right in front of like the Empire constantly.
Yeah.
But I guess in this it's like it adds this like era of danger.
Of course, yeah.
Because like the Death Star is basically prepared to destroy its own plans over and over and over again in this movie. Yeah. They're going around trying to tie up loose ends, clean up this this stuff, and they're always just like a couple minutes too late.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they're literally prepared to be like, well, you guys fucked up, so you're all dead.
Right, like Andor's a great example because like they're just a couple minutes too late in stopping the message of the Death Star in general escaping to Yavin.
Yeah.
You know, just a couple minutes too late. You're just always just one step behind the rebellion. So it's exciting in that way, but again, it's a way of creating tension. And again, the only thing that has plot armor in Rogue One are the Death Star.
The Death Star plans. Yeah. Well, it's that very like interesting like cat and mouse thing, right? So it's more intriguing when the mouse almost gets caught, and it is more exciting when the mouse gets away, right?
Yes.
Like just by an inch, right?
Yeah.
So like no one wants to see something that just blows up in your face, right? Immediately. Like it's like you need those like close moments. It's what makes great film.
I agree
and
completely. It's really useless without all those without that
yeah.
element.
Right.
Last question before we get into our little recap here, which is, what are your thoughts on Jyn and Cassian's relationship
I was
now?
gonna ask you that. Yeah, I mean, okay, but here's the thing. I also remember watching this movie and liking the fact that
it wasn't a romantic
it wasn't
relationship.
it wasn't
but they
romantic.
clearly like each
they
other.
have a moment like at the end when they're in the elevator and it's all like the shadows are moving and whatever, like as they're like going down in the elevator, pretty much right before they die. There's like a little moment there where they're just like staring at each other.
But they keep saving each other.
Yeah.
They obviously care about each other. She goes back, there's this whole thing. So
but I do remember appreciating that it wasn't like a love story, and it was like I liked that there was no weird like kiss as they were dying.
Just a nice
hug.
It's
like an embrace, and it was like it felt, even after like watching Andor, it still didn't feel like it was anything like super romantic yet. Like it's definitely not the way he was with Bix and like that relationship. But I mean, I mean, like there's a little bit of
two good-looking people,
love and appreciation there.
Just
yeah, he doesn't need to be celibate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and she left. It's like he's allowed to. I'm not saying he's not allowed. I'm just saying
I know.
It's interesting to look at it through that lens, which is to say like where's his head at? Where's its heart at?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like he obviously forms an attachment to Jyn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And her to him in some way.
Yeah.
But it's clear. Yeah. And maybe if they had more time, like, and they hadn't died on that beach, maybe there, maybe something could have developed there. But like instead, it becomes this very like this relationship of like understanding each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like I get you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is nice, and I don't know. Like there's a like what? Okay, what if the scene where Bix is holding her baby, looking out into the. Did we say this already?
No.
What if the scene where Bix is holding her baby and looking out into the field of wheat, ancient rye that they grew for a year to make that set. Actually, I think they went up to a field of wheat for that one. In retrospect, I think that was like an add-on scene, and they went out to a wheat field for that. But do you think that, or what do you think if that scene was happening at the same time that Cassian was being blown up on the beach?
That's devastating, and I can't even think about that without wanting to cry.
Yeah, but like
devastating.
She has these dreams. She has some sort of anyone can have force abilities in the new Star Wars stuff.
I think
but like,
mostly just because she's shushing the baby and be like, it's okay.
Right, but like, what if there's that what if there's that like force connection there? That's like that's classic Star Wars stuff. If that's happening,
it really is.
I like that's my headcanon that's happening at that same time.
Yeah.
It makes it just to make it sadder. Just if you really want to make it more sad. If you want, if this wasn't a downer enough for you,
punch you in the guts a little bit more.
The thing is, like, I didn't cry at the end, and I thought I was going to, as it had this new context. But the movie is like so adrenaline pumping through that third act that like I'm still riding the highs of the space combat and like getting the plans to the thing and all that stuff happening.
Yeah.
That I'm like not in the emotional headspace to be crying about Cassian's death here.
Yeah, there's like I feel like there's too much happening. There's too many deaths happening. It's
everyone
right
we get like 15 deaths in a row. And it's
so
it does lose a bit
everything
of
just keeps moving because they still don't have the plans yet. Like it's
true.
not over yet.
It's true.
So there's still more excitement.
I think
you don't know
in terms of like emotional gut punch deaths, Chirrut and Baz's deaths hit me way harder.
Yeah.
Because he's like, it's such like a brotherly love.
Chirrut's is sad.
Like,
and so is,
but Baz is, because he's like, he re-embraces his faith at that moment. It's like, that's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are characters you barely know, but the shorthand that you get from that, I think, is really good stuff. So,
yeah.
All right, let's get into this recap. So it starts with a flashback to Galen being rediscovered by the Empire 15 years before the contemporary events of the main film and Andor. Which I was like, I forgot that it was that was a flashback for first, because in the first time you watch it, it starts in the flashback and then jumps to present day.
Yes.
Whereas if you watch with Andor in context, it's like you're in present day, then flashback, then present day again. So you started 15 years prior, which would put you like right around the time when the Republic switched over to the Empire.
Right.
Just about almost exactly. And we learn from this scene that Galen took his family, his wife and daughter, to live as farmers on this like remote planet.
Yeah.
And Krennic finds him. They've stalled. Their Death Star project has stalled. They've hit a road bump.
Mm-hmm.
A speed bump is the word I'm looking for. And they need their genius engineer back. And they're not taking no for an answer, basically. So we get a lot of great one-liners here. There's the meme that has endured. There's a lot of memes from this movie, but the meme that I think endures one of the most is farming a man of your talents.
Yeah. Which
is such a great line.
Yeah.
From Krennic. And he says it's a peaceful life.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tries to lie about how his wife is dead and all this stuff. And he's like, well, you're a great engineer, but a bad liar.
Yeah.
Which does play into the whole thing later. I
right.
think that's actually a great setup. And you get, again, this other great line about how you're confusing peace with terror.
Mm-hmm.
And Krennic's kind of like flippant response, which is like, well, you got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of a real fuck you to the whole concept of,
right.
of terror, being like, well, it's worth it, is what it sounds like. Right? And then a bunch of stuff. You get introduced to a young baby Jin, basically. She's what? How old do you think she is? Like 10 years old here?
Like
8
less,
years old?
Maybe.
Six?
Yeah, 6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a stormtrooper doll, like wooden doll, which I'll start my counter of Andor connections.
Yeah.
There is an ATST doll in the first arc of season 2 when they're on Mina Rao. One of the kids has like
with
a
the puppet. Yeah.
A puppet of the ATST.
Yeah.
So continuing this trend where parents in the Star Wars universe give their children toys that are designed after Imperial war machines.
Yes, yeah.
Why not?
Parents nowadays do that.
I mean, they're cool looking. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, parents nowadays give their kids tanks to play with and
I was playing with a lot
planes,
of
G.I. Joes, exactly. Like, we did the exact same stuff as kids.
That's fair. Okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
And, you got to respect, no, this is not a gendered household. They're willing to give their daughter Stormtrooper toy.
Yeah.
We also get the reference to blue milk. Everyone was like, "Boo! It's too obvious," because it's like center.
Right.
It's like center frame.
of
that sequence. But I don't really care. It doesn't really bother me.
No.
Instead, you get a great line, a great little scene where he calls Saw on like the video panel.
Yeah.
Which is much more reminiscent of Andor, another Andor connection, where they do video calling instead of like hologram calling a lot more often, which I think is just an excuse for Tony Gilroy to be like, I want to see people's actual faces.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Which, I mean, technically you do, but just like a blue, like, boo
yeah,
thing going
yeah.
on, and then we also get introduced to the Death Troopers for the first time. This is like one of the first like additions that this series makes, or the show movie introduces to the series. Death Troopers, by the way, such a cool, like they're so cool. Badass.
They
right?
are very cool.
They're like weird, like they don't speak English situation is like whatever they got going. Really cool. They're like that sleeker design.
They're very menacing, very scary.
Their blaster is like very like bare bones, but looks very deadly. You know. And they're obviously much more talented than a regular stormtrooper. But it's just a cool visual to have like Krennic in his like white cape,
Mm-hmm.
and then these flanked by these stormtroopers in black. It's great. It's a great sequence. It's like out in this like blistery, rainy, like farm, like rice farm, basically looks like. And there's a call to Saw. They call him his old friend. So there's this like establishing this connection between Saw and Galen, which is like, how the fuck would they know each other? You know?
Right? Oh, old friends.
And we also get our first, like the movie starts immediately with the new theme music, Krennic's theme, which is like reused constantly because you're constantly following Krennic around. Dun, da, 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 da. It's great.
Yeah.
And that's not Giancarlo Esposito. Man, that's my bad.
What?
No. The composer, man, it slipped my mind now. What the hell's his name? Anyway, he's the first. It's notable because this movie was the first standalone Star Wars movie.
Gotcha.
Right? And so this is the first Star Wars movie that didn't have John Williams scoring the music.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And so you get this like twist on the Star Wars musical concepts.
Yeah.
Without it being, obviously pure John Williams or references to John Williams. So you get this variant of it. I think it does a great job. I think the music in this movie is great.
It is great. Yeah.
The name will come back to me. It starts with a G. It's like a long. He did the Spider-Man movies and stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Where the hell is his name in this cast? It's so many names. Anyway, it'll come to me. So, Michael Giacchino.
Okay. There you
Not
go.
Giancarlo, Michael Giacchino. And of course, his son also did the music for, what was it? The Acolyte?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
I liked the score in The Acolyte.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any thoughts on the sound, the music? Like, that theme is, I think, the most iconic one.
Yeah, it is. They're always so good. Like I can't say enough praises for like the people that they get to create these themes because they all work and they just fit so well. Like everything just sounds so Star Warsy, and it is so fun that they do different themes for these different characters at all, right? So,
well, yeah, which is like, well, I mean, the what are they called?
It's a lot of work.
Motifs or whatever, light motifs.
Yeah.
So you get these light motifs for these different characters, which I think is a staple of John Williams' version of Star Wars. So you get these same, if it's Kevin Kiner or it's it's this guy, or it's whoever else, like the Mando guy who did something very different.
That's
right?
the Ludwig guy, right?
Ludwig Göransson, yeah.
Yeah.
Who just did the music for Sinners, by the way.
Okay.
And Sinners, I just saw in theaters. Unreal good movie. So good. It's like a vampire movie set like post World War II.
Oh, okay.
And
how scary? Well, you don't like scary
it's
movies,
not that
right?
scary.
Okay, yeah.
It's really not that scary. It's more like there's some like violence and like blood and stuff, but
yeah,
it's
I'm
not
fine with that.
But it's not a horror movie.
I don't
like the
jump
classic.
scare.
It's not like that. There's
there's
a couple of those, but like very few.
I need to be able to hide like my eyeballs if I'm watching a horror movie.
Yeah, well, you would
hide under a blanket.
You would only have to hide like a handful of times. It's really honestly, Sinners is more about like the music. It's so obsessed with blues.
To check it out.
Blues especially, but then there's a little bit of like Irish music in there.
And it's not outdone because it's vampires. We haven't had enough vampires.
They do
yet?
a cool twist on their their version of vampires is like a cool idea.
Okay.
And
they don't glitter.
They don't glitter, but they fly kind of like
Ew.
like Edward does. There's only one sequence where you see them do that.
Yeah.
And it's all like they fly like kind of like Twilight vampires.
Like where they run really fast?
No, where they like kind of like leap into the air and kind of like float.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a staple of vampire stuff anyway. It's not like they invented that, but I'm just saying that there's one sequence where that happens, and it's like, but it's cool. Again, Sinners, amazing movie, all shot like for large format IMAX. I didn't have a chance to see it in IMAX, but I would highly recommend it. It's a great movie about music, and Ludwig Göransson brings like a nice he brings his talents to that, and it's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a question in the chat. You can always, by the way, join us live when we do this on Twitch and YouTube. I encourage everyone to hit like and subscribe so you get notified when we go live for these things, because our schedule is not necessarily consistent.
True.
Because we're doing this today. It's a Tuesday.
Sorry.
Normally we do Wednesdays, but the movie didn't come out yesterday, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
It's my fault this week. I'm busy.
How would you say this name?
Loiternich?
Loiternich O's.
Yeah.
That's
Loiternich
good. That's
OS.
good. I would have I would have messed that up. Anyway, they ask, do you think we'll see more of Cassian in future Star Wars projects? And I think the answer to that is probably not.
Yeah.
Because what else is there to tell? We've seen his him as a child, and we've seen him die. And almost everything in between. I mean, in theory, there's like standalone missions. There's all those years in between that stuff that we haven't seen him doing stuff. And it depends what you mean by projects. I think you'll probably see him in like comics and books.
Comics
and stuff.
for sure. I could see him popping up like you know in certain stuff. But yeah, I don't.
There's just nowhere like what else, again, like what else is there to say? And it's like, would you even want more Cassian if Tony Gilroy wasn't involved?
Yeah.
Like really?
Yeah, it's true.
People are saying the same thing about Mon Mothma. It's like, do we even want more Mon Mothma if Tony Gilroy's not going to write her?
Yeah.
It's like I kind of get that, but also
true.
There's other good writers out there. We can find a way. Just don't hire the bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Travis Mitchell, friend of the show, asking how we're going.
Hey
It's
there.
going. It's going.
It's going well.
It's going well.
Going well.
Yeah, it's not just going. I don't like when people say it's going. I feel like that's like a non-answer. You know what I mean? Another Day in Paradise. That's my another one. People used to say that a lot
so
in Cayman. They're like, oh, how's it going?
I mean, that makes sense for
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Here, not so much.
I guess when you say it here, it's more sarcastic.
Yeah. I was like, we
Right.
live in the butthole of Canada.
It's not a butthole. We don't live in a butthole.
It is a butthole.
Okay, buttholes are important. Okay, but it's not a butthole. There's much buttier holes.
Belly button, then. It's the belly button.
Okay, that's better.
Still
That's fine.
gross.
The problem with belly buttons, useless.
Little
No one
useless,
needs one.
little stinky.
There's no reason to. Are they stinky?
I think guys usually have stinky.
Why are
ones.
they stinky?
I don't know. You
Do they
guys
get
have
sweaty in there?
Yeah, you guys have deep ones.
Mine,
There's always
mine,
stuff in
mine
there.
catch lint.
Yeah, I've never had that happen to me, but it is a dude thing.
Because it rub your like the hair on your body rubs the clothes and it creates lint.
Gross.
That's not that gross. That's just normal. That's just how clothes work. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we're talking about the first scene in Rogue One. So anyway, any other final thoughts on this like escape sequence where his wife gets shot?
It's just sad. Like I hate. Not that I hate. It's compelling story writing, but I hate when kids have to like see their parents die in front of them. It's super awful. It is, fun to see Saw come in and save a kid and like give a shit because he's not super crazy yet.
Yeah.
So you kind of get that side of him and finding out that he actually like raised Jin.
Yeah,
basically, is
so
like kind of wild. Like Saw raising
it
a child
opens up a lot of
is
questions
insane.
about Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
That like the movie is not prepared to answer, and the show Andor does not even try to articulate.
Yeah.
Like when I guess Jin would have already left by the time we first catch up with Saw in season 1 of Andor,
Probably,
which was 5 years prior.
Yeah.
Travis Mitchell makes a good point here. As for Andor showing up again, a Tales from the Droids animated series, kind of like a spinoff.
Yeah.
Showing stories from the perspective of droid characters with K2 could be a fun idea.
That would
and
be fun.
I agree with that.
I would totally read or like watch some material that was like K2 Andor missions, like how they get so buddy over like that year.
Yeah.
Right?
And like it's funny to think like that's something that Lucasfilm would love doing.
Yeah.
They love doing Dave Filoni especially
Mm-hmm.
with his like influence from Lucas. Lucas loved telling droid stories.
Yeah.
And Filoni picked up on that thread.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of like droid specific stories in Clone Wars, which are arguably some of the not best scene like arcs in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
There's a cool one where you meet Clone Commando, but you end up dealing with that like annoying frog character the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Which
yeah.
sucks. And then they go to that planet that looks like Mandalore from Rebels, where there's literally it's just white space.
Just white, yeah.
And you're like, this is crazy. Like we really just didn't have budget this week to build.
We just drew not even a desert.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, another question from Loiternich. Do you think Luthen's monologue in episode 10 hints at a deeper connection to Sagur's extremist views, or was it more of a personal reflection on sacrifice? So episode 10 of the first season, when is that what you're talking about? When do you think Luthen's monologue in episode 10 is that a deeper connection to Sagur's extremist views? Which episode 10? Episode 10 of season 2 or episode 10 of season 1?
Another sunny day in the void.
Another sunny day in the void. Yeah.
Love that episode.
Yeah, the void. Yeah, that's yeah, man. Screw that arc. Again, getting to have a clone commando and he comes back in Bad Batch is awesome, but that arc sucks. Anyway, you're right. That would be the best way to do it, to tell it from K2's perspective, because K2 is obviously like a standout character of Rogue One.
He's so funny.
So speaking of funny, I think the other thing that Rogue One does really well is coming back. We'll come back to your question, Loiternich, once you clarify which speech specifically you have in mind. This movie, Rogue One, has a lot of funny elements. There's it's not a ton. It's not like a laugh a minute, but I think it has just enough this feels like Star Wars bits of things that are funny. That other Star Wars stuff sometimes forgets to include. Like, for instance, in this very first scene, you get this amazing moment from Krennic where he's like, "Oh, look, your wife back from the dead. It's a miracle."
Yeah, yeah, right.
Which is so
dry.
Is so good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Star Wars is always good for having those little bits of humor, and I always appreciate them when they do pop up. Especially like a Krennic one is good. The bad guy ones are good.
Okay, so we have clarification. So he's talking about the big speech, Luthen's monologue. And so what he's talking about, doomed to use the tools of my enemy and all this stuff. In terms of a connection to Sagar's extremist views, I think there is a connection to that.
Yeah.
Because they work together, and he was willing to work with Saw in ways that the Rebel High Command wasn't.
Yeah.
And understood Saw's understanding of the fact that rebellion requires a little bit of crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sane people wouldn't sign up to do a lot of the things that you need to have done for a rebellion, right?
There's also a reason why the rebellion isn't really fucking with Luthen or Saw at this point. They're both kind of.
Well, I think it's a little bit holier than thou.
Yeah,
them.
It is.
It's very
you
convenient.
guys aren't doing things the right way,
right? To stand on, your principles and be like, hey, this is how we want to fight. Saw calls. We played it in the clip, and if you didn't watch our last episode, we played the clip from Rebels where Saw calls out Mon for saying, if you want to keep fighting this war on the Empire's terms, you will lose.
Yeah.
And he's right to say that.
Yeah.
Because if they had listened to the Rebel High Command, they would have lost.
Yeah, it's true.
The movie's called Rogue One. They're not acting in accordance with the rules that were laid out to them. Right, and what does Saw say? When the Imperial flag flies over the universe, the galaxy unopposed, you can be comforted by the fact that you fought by the rules.
Fought by the rules, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's another great connection to Andor in this movie where he talks to Jin and he's like, "Do you not care about the cause?" And makes another. It says basically line for line that same line about the. Actually, it's not. I guess that's not a connection to Andor. It's a connection to Rebels. He says that basically line for line, the Empire ruling unopposed across the galaxy as this boogeyman, right? But that's his greatest fear. To finish my thought on Luther's question, yes, I think it does hint at there being a deeper connection to his perspective, but Saw's perspective is one of a terrorist, essentially.
Yeah.
And Luthen's perspective is one of a spy master.
Yes, yeah.
So it's different methodologies, but they kind of agree in the sense that it requires a little bit of pain.
Yes.
For this to work.
Yeah, Saw's a little bit more extreme in what he's willing to lose. Luthen's a lot more calculated in that. He knows when things get to the point that he has to burn an asset or that he has to, lose someone but Saw's a little more willy-nilly with his things. So.
Oh yeah, he's willing to. Remember when he's like, I'll help out Anto Krieger. If I get to keep the spoils of war, then you have a deal. I'm ready to go right now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then Travis talking a little bit about following up on our thoughts on the Clone Wars. Clone Wars had a habit of sacrificing characters and forgetting the very next episode.
Yeah.
After Gregor dies, they don't even mention him the next episode in the arc. I know. It's like that stuff happens all the time. I think it's a thing that Dave Filoni is kind of like slowly worked his way out of. Mm-hmm. He really did like to buy into these are serials in the same way that Lucas did, and like these are independent stories. They have connections, but they're not like serialized in the sense that they're like fully connected, scene to scene and episode to episode. And then he also hated killing his characters, and then even if he did, he'd often bring them back. So, and this is like a big like his biggest, I think, flaw or critique that people have for him, which is that like you got to commit to the deaths because it completely undercuts the tension if you undo it all
keep
the time.
Bringing people back. Yeah.
Travis also on Rogue One. What I love is K2 is pessimistic and doubtful of success until Cassian changes his mindset in the third arc. The rebel says there is no Rogue One, to which K2 says there is now.
Yeah.
Which is it's great. I mean, watching K2's little mini arc in Rogue One is like super satisfying.
Yeah.
When he says like, "You continually surprise me, Jyn Erso," is like a great moment. The connection to Andor when he says "climb."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of that is an actual connection or so much as one that we like to make.
Right.
But I like to think of it that way.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move past the first sequence of the movie.
I know.
So the title sequence of Rogue One is pretty bland and uninspired, and I don't like it. That's my take on it. They didn't want to do an opening crawl. They didn't feel like it was appropriate because it's a standalone movie. I think they should have anyway.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't have like any musical flair to it. It just like Rogue One, it's the logo, and then we just cut away. And it's like it's not doing anything interesting.
Yeah.
Andor does it a million times better.
It is very good.
And every other, even the Clone Wars did it better with the bing thing that they do. Like so, it's just a missed opportunity.
Yeah, they could have done
something
more
more
with
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Obviously a nitpick.
They learned for the series, for the Andor series.
No, they did. We start at the Ring of Kafrene, which is the first like major connection to Andor because that's where Cassian is leaving for in the final arc of the finale of Andor.
That's such a cool planet when they pull up on it. It's just so cool.
It's not a planet. It's like a city built into an asteroid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I guess it's like a ring. It's an asteroid field, and then that's the Ring of Kafrene, and then there's the city built into it.
Oh, okay.
So that's really it's got a really cool look.
Yeah. I thought it was like a planet with like a ring around it that had all the stuff on it.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I could be wrong. No, it's
that's totally could
either
be,
way, very cool looking.
I wonder if they secretly hid in a potato in the in the asteroids. That's like a Star Wars thing that they do apparently.
They put potatoes.
They like to put potatoes into the
so
asteroid
funny.
fields just to hide them in there.
That's cute. I love things like that. I think that's very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he meets with Tivik, a rebel spy, and he is, I guess, spying on Saw's partisans.
Yes.
So
like that.
For the rebellion, so he's kind of like a triple agent or and a double agent, I guess.
Yeah. Luthen has those too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is so funny because I go back to the scene in Andor finale where they're talking to Saw, and he's like, "You don't know where I am."
Yeah. He's just like,
you don't know where I am.
I know, like Kate, not Bay.
But it's like, actually, we do know where you are because we have spies in your organization.
Yeah.
Because we need to keep an eye on you because you're such a fucking loose end.
Yeah.
And like, just
you're
agent
doing
of chaos.
Crazy things, so like someone has to watch you and report back. Like, you think we have no one watching you? Yeah, you don't know where I am. Such a toddler.
Yeah,
answer.
I know.
Yeah.
Travis Mitchell says Brasso calls Cassian a quote unstoppable force for good, an absolute. Once he chooses to be good at the end of Rogue One, it's the variable for K2 to deem them successful in anything. He chooses to be good at the end of Andor, I think he meant. But yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, thinking about Brasso's speech where he talks to Cassian about Marva's last words.
Yeah.
Unbelievable
so
stuff.
good.
I think Marva. So my stack ranking of like favorite characters of Andor is like Clea, then Marva, then K2, and then Cassian probably.
Yeah.
And like there's a bunch of other characters in there. That would be hard. We add that to the list. Our stack ranking of
characters
from Andor specifically. But like, yeah, I mean, I like thinking about that. Like Travis's comment here about this unstoppable force for good, and then Luthen's comment about how he's someone that always appeared to me when I needed, or you appeared to me when I needed you most. And then the Force healer's kind of like you're a messenger, someone who is picking things up and carrying them as you go, and all that stuff. As this kind of like idea of Tony Gilroy talks about the reluctant destiny concept, but like as this person who's destined for something greater than himself, and then seeing it play out, because he gets shot in the stomach or whatever in when he's climbing the vault,
right? Yeah,
and then appears. You think he's dead. He appears and he shoots Krennic at the end. It saves Jyn, and then they get to have that moment together.
Right,
but without him, they probably don't send the plan. So it's like it's all that stuff comes together, and then also him being this like advocate for doing the right thing in spite of what people tell you to do. Right?
Yeah.
Even when the rebellion's like, no, it's not worth the risk. They're like, well, you guys are dumb. We have to go get these plans.
Yeah,
so,
you guys are dumb.
Yeah. Okay, so he's meeting with Tivik, a rebel spy. He gets murdered. Tivik gets murdered by Cassian. And so, do you remember people being like, oh, this movie's hard to get into because the very first character that we were supposed to like kills another rebel right in the very beginning.
Right, yeah.
And I think that didn't play well originally, but now in context with Andor, it plays perfectly because it's something that Luthen would do.
It makes 100% sense because it's like he knows he's going to get captured, basically. He's like, Tivik's going to get captured, and he can't be at risk, and he's not going to make it anyway. It's like,
what happened to his arm? What was it, injured?
I think he was shot already or something. But it's like, he's already kind of done for, like, because the Empire's going to catch him, and they're going to kill him anyway. So it's just like, well, like, they're just going to torture you to death and try to get info out of you. So it is kind of a mercy kill in a way, because Cassian knows his only way out is to climb.
Yeah.
And if Tivik can't climb, it's like, fuck, man, sorry. Like, you know?
And he's also like, he's panicking.
Yeah.
And like, you can't have people panicking.
Yeah.
On a
that
spy
too, because you just know you're like, oh man, you're just gonna spill the beans.
Yeah.
Like,
I also like to think about that line from season 1 where he tells when he's on Narkina 5, he's like, power doesn't panic.
Yeah.
And so when you see people panicking, it's like, oh, you're just giving up all your leverage.
Yeah.
So he kills that person. He kills this guy. Gets the thing is, the scene also has this great moment where he's like, it essentially verifies all the information he'd already heard from Luthen.
Yes.
Like he just heard this information, shared it with the council. They're skeptical. He now goes to this guy, corroborates that evidence. He's like, okay, so he is on Jedha. We're pretty sure about that, but confirmed. There is we now know the weapon. It's a planet killer. That's new. That's new news. Because there's been people's complaints like, well, what Luthen sacrificed that they just learn again 2 minutes later in Rogue One, but it's like, not really. It's new information, and he like grabs onto the Urso, like Galen Urso.
Yeah, I love the buzzwords.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, oh, Galen Urso.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, interesting. And then he takes that back, and that's a big deal. So speaking of the partisans, Travis Mitchell mentions that Two Tubes, the
Two Tubes is there,
survives through and past the original trilogy, and he likes how pieces of Andor's life get to outlive the show. A lot of what Andor sets up outlives him, and that is a nice kind of like make it worth it. You know how he says like, hey, to the Mon, he's like, well, you know, just make it worth it. And he says it again in Rogue One. It's like, we did these terrible things because we thought we were doing it for a cause that was worth it.
Yeah. And
you get to see it play out in that way, like it was worth it, which is like a nice like full circle bow tie. Although, how do we know, Travis, that Two Tubes survives past the original trilogy? I'm not familiar with that.
I don't know.
I don't remember seeing him anywhere.
Is he in Book of Boba Fett? No,
I don't think so. I don't know. Travis, come back to us on that one. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
We'd like a reference. If you're gonna make those, you got to reference your research.
Yeah. Reference your research.
Okay, so we then cut to the Wabani prison camp. The only thing worth mentioning here is that we get to see a Juggernaut post Clone Wars, which is cool. And then we see Jyn as Felicity Jones for the first time. She's in. I always remember the scene where she's in that prison cell, and then the stormtrooper like walks by her door.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a great way of introducing this character. And then we meet K2 for the first time in this movie, and he's always hilarious. Congratulations, you're being rescued.
She's trying to run out. He just like
that's right.
Basically clotheslines her.
Yeah, it's so great. Yep.
He has so many lines.
Yeah.
I particularly like the one where he's like says something nice to her when they're about to leave.
Cassian made me do
it.
Like,
Cassian told me to.
yeah. It's like, you don't have to
don't
say
worry,
that.
I got your back or something. He's like, Cassian told me I had to.
That's
funny.
Good. So and then Cassian interrogates Jyn back at Yavin. So we have, and this actually, I think Mon's there for this too. So we have to assume that they corroborated the intel from Kivik with what they received from Luthen. They leveraged Imperial intel to locate Jyn, because I think that's the one thing that's like not entirely accurate.
It's how they know about Jyn.
How do they know about Jyn? She's going under a fake name, and she's in Imperial custody.
Yeah.
That's
why I was curious, because they don't really tell you that, right? Like how they figure out where she is.
Dravik, what's his name? Draven?
Yeah.
He's really good spy. He's really good intelligence officer. So he
Yeah.
was able to.
They got Galen Erso's name. They're like, all right.
We'll find his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Across all the galaxy.
Although I guess from Saw, maybe they got info about Jyn from Saw.
Saw's not sharing any information.
He might about that.
No, he wouldn't.
No?
No. he's beyond
at some
helping
point,
at that point
in the last
15
years.
Saw thought she was dead. Remember?
I don't think he thought she was dead.
He's like you hadn't seen her for like 10 years.
Yeah, he left her behind.
Yeah.
But to keep her, I think, safe.
Right.
I don't think he thought
but
she was dead.
maybe not, but either way, he doesn't know where.
Yeah, where she was.
Yeah.
That's true.
So like I don't know, that wouldn't have been helpful. So they must have had some sort of like, they just had some guy looking through Imperial mugshots, trying to find. But did they know what Jyn Erso even looked like? Like, how did they? Again, that's the biggest plot hole in this movie.
Yeah.
How did they locate Jyn Erso so fast?
Somehow they just know.
And then mounted a rescue within like a day.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll have to just assume that all that stuff happened.
Yeah.
And we have to assume that the Empire didn't know that Jyn was Jyn. She was going under that fake name, because if they knew that, she would have probably been used as leverage against Galen already.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Cassian needs to get to Saw, who they refer to as an extremist, which obviously we know is an extremist. And because they have a pilot, Saw has a pilot who's defected and was sent by Galen, and they know that from Kivik.
Yeah.
So the only reason that they need this, it's kind of one of those weird Rogue Goldberg story machines, but it's like the reason that they need Jyn is so they can get to Saw, so they can get to Bodhi.
Bodhi, yeah.
But they don't know that his name's Bodhi yet.
Yeah, Bodhi Rook.
Yeah, you like Miz Ahmed?
Yeah,
Riz Ahmed.
Yeah, I have such a soft spot for the name Bodhi in general.
Because
I love Point Break.
Do you think it's a Point Break reference? There's not that really
no,
any.
I don't think
reference.
it is. Like Bodhi's, it's just a name. It's like I believe it's kind of like from like Buddhist origin or whatever. But
it's a sick name.
Yeah, it's a great name. I wanted to name my kid that, but I can't.
Why?
Someone we know named their kid Bodhi.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, everyone knows you're not allowed to name your kid.
I know. It's a very popular name all of a sudden again. I was like, what the hell? Why is everybody naming their kid Bodhi? I saw 2 people name their kid Bodhi in the last.
Could have named him Cassian.
Yeah, no.
Missed opportunity.
But his middle name's Ben.
All right, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay. So she says she doesn't know anything about her dad, and she prefers to believe that he's dead. They tell her they want to rescue him. He's like, hey, by the way, he is alive. So good news. And we want to rescue him so he can testify in front of Senate. Like, no, that is like a
wild.
You expect us to believe that shit? Come on.
Yeah.
When I hearing that line, I was like, they got to be fucking joking. The Senate is like a week away from being disbanded.
Yeah, yeah.
They think that
and say what?
Presenting Galen
Emperor is bad.
No, we found this one guy. He's building a planet-killing weapon.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be, and the Emperor's
gonna
be like,
believe.
You got me.
Yeah. They're not
it's
gonna
almost
believe you.
done, but we gotta have to toss the project because you got me.
Yeah.
You know, like come on. Anyway, it turns out that's a lie because Draven wants Galen dead. He's like, if he's building this weapon, he's better off if he's dead now.
Yeah.
Which, you know what?
Yeah.
Kind of true.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did build it.
Yeah. So Travis says, Inferno Squad also shows the surviving partisans were joined and led by Lux Bonteri and Ahsoka's boyfriend from the Clone Wars.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's man, Lux sucked in that sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Inferno Squad. So that's cool.
Okay.
I'm glad to know that 2 tubes lived on.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. I hope the Yeti also lived to a long life.
Yeah.
That like giant white teddy bear thing that works for Saw.
Yeah.
So any other anyway, so that's the oh, we also get this great line Andor connection about K2 and his lack of a filter, which
right.
is that it's a byproduct of his reprogramming,
yeah.
which we saw that droid guy being like explaining like
yeah.
this is how it works and this is why he's not going to have a filter basically.
Yeah, which I love because it's
impulse suppression.
It's like impulse suppression. Yeah, it's so good because I love the dry humor of him. Like he's just so.
No, it's very great.
To the point, but it's so funny.
It's just very like biting.
Yeah, but he's not even meaning to. That just makes it so much funnier. He's not trying to be funny.
I find your answers vague and unconvincing.
Yeah, it's just I love him. He's right up there with some of my favorite droids.
I will say that Jyn at this point in the story is very unlikable. She's like,
yeah.
I don't care about anything. She was just in Imperial prison. She doesn't seem to care that she was rescued.
Yeah, they're like you're rescued by the rebel like alliance.
They need your help, and she's like, ugh.
Yeah.
If I have to, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's like, your dad's involved. You don't care about that. He's like, whatever. It's like, okay,
yeah.
You're not engendering a lot of love early on.
Right.
All right. So we go to Jeddah, and it's nice seeing it in live action again after playing Jedi Survivor.
Okay.
And you spend a lot of time on Jeddah. And it builds out the world of Jeddah, which is nice because you learn more about like the different temples that they have.
Okay.
And the different pilgrimages that different Force believers would make or Force users would make and all that stuff. It's cool.
Jedi Survivor obviously happens before this because Jedi
Correct.
Blown up.
Well, not all of Jedda's blown up.
No, it's just
Holy
like the main city. Yeah. That's what I was trying to think. I'm like, it's not all blown up, but most of it.
Jedi Survivor does happen. Yeah, I think so.
That makes sense because it's still there.
Yeah. Well, you don't go to the Holy City but you spend all your time out in like the dunes.
Yeah.
But the way that they show it in this, it's like really cool. Like these giant, like massive. It's like Lord of the Rings scale statues.
Yeah, they're
right.
So
the
cool.
Argonath, but in Jedi, like fallen over, like into the, and it's like the size of like a small city,
like
and
massive.
it's like it's so cool.
Adam says you get to see some of that in like the High Republic, like
still
like
standing
comics. Yeah, like you get to see some of them like all in their glories. Like it's really cool. But
yeah, and so again, obviously just the concept of Jeddah, which was I think invented as far as I know for this movie, is really badass.
Yeah, it's
right?
like a Jedi.
It's a holy
Jedi city.
Holy Jedi city.
Yeah.
But it exists kind of like outside of the Jedi Order exclusively.
Right.
It's kind of more of like a celebration of the Force.
Yeah.
But like it's and then the name Jeddah, which is so close to Jedi, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And this massive Jedi temple that's full of kyber crystals and the visual, which comes later, but the visual of the Star Destroyer over top of the Holy City is like this iconic image. It's so cool.
So good. There's a version of Jeddah kind of in the sorry to get a little sidetracked here, in one of like the Sith novels, and it's like a old Sith temple that has like Sith secrets in it, but it's full of these like crazy zealots that are still like part of, like, think they're following the Sith ways.
I assume
but
all
they're
those
not
people,
Force sensitive.
all those people in that stadium in Episode 9 are those people.
Yeah, in the stadium. Yeah, exactly. It's
that
in the Bane books, which are really good.
That's cool.
But
and Bane is canon, right? They mentioned Bane in
they mentioned
Yoda
him,
mentions Bane.
Yoda talks to like a version of
ghost
Bane
of him or something.
in Clone Wars, in the animated Clone Wars.
When he's doing his like spirit quest.
Yes,
yeah.
Bane is his story's so cool. But
maybe we'll see it one day on
it would be awesome
in movies.
I'm sure they would change it a little bit, but it'd be sick.
I'm sure they would. Travis mentions a missed opportunity for Andor was not having an episode with Bodhi and Galen bonding on Yadu, leading to his defection. So I think there was some hope that we might see Galen. People were like, well, maybe we'll see Jyn. I think it makes no sense to see Jyn Erso before Rogue One. She's literally in prison. So like what reason would we have to ever have her involved until that?
Right.
Hearing about her name from Galen would have been interesting, but we don't know about Galen until the very last episode of Andor. So it doesn't I don't know. I just don't think that they felt like they had time or maybe in the world where that was 5 seasons instead of 1 season. 4 seasons instead of 1 season.
Yeah.
They would have had time for something like that.
It's kind of like the same thing I felt with like Baze and Chirrut. Like, kind of cool to see them, but it's like too much.
I think
too
with
hard
all
to do.
things with Star Wars, it's like you're going to get surface level stuff, and then you have to fill it in elsewhere.
Yeah,
and I think we learn a lot about Bodhi, and
in a short amount of time
about like how he was like tortured soul, basically.
Yeah,
couldn't live with himself anymore, and Galen was like, the only way to like free yourself of this like torture that you're putting yourself through is to do something that's like greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like that's helping me get this message out to the rebellion. Bodhi in Sanskrit, this is from Travis, means enlightenment or awakening.
Right, yes.
When we first
Sanskrit.
see him, he has a bag taken off his head, removing his blindfold, his arc being slowly to tell people the truth they don't want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say this. I find Riz Ahmed as a performer grating. I just don't I don't really vibe with his vibe. Especially in Sound of Metal, which I think he won an Oscar for that movie.
Oh, I've never seen it.
I just like that I did not like him or his performance in that movie. And every time I see him like pop up, like occasionally I think when he has small roles in this one, I think he's better. But
I feel like I don't really know him enough as an actor in other things, but
cool name, Riz. Yeah. Though can't go wrong with that. Anyway, thanks, Travis. I think that's some good insight here. I mean, Bodhi naming the character Bodhi was intentional.
Yeah.
So and getting him, I find in rewatching this movie when you're talking about Bodhi, what I remember from the first time I watched it was he was so annoying after from the beginning, basically through when he gets like his mind fucked with the Borgullet. And then after he's like so useless, like he's like, oh, I'm the pilot. Right. And it's like, that's really annoying because everyone already knows that.
Yes,
and it's like, if you don't know that, it's like, this is frustrating as an audience member. But, in like rewatch this time, I find he's like his like connection to Galen is much more like obvious and on screen. Well, it's not on screen literally because you don't ever see them interact, but like he talks about it and like his whole thing about like he says for Galen right before he dies.
Yeah.
And it's like so there's like I think that through line comes through a lot better, and he's like much more useful because he's like helping navigate them into the Scarif Gate and all thing things. So he's like
without him,
functional.
it's they would have a lot more trouble like finding the Master Switch, doing all those things, right? Like being able to get the info out there, right? So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the other one. He was Riot in Venom, and I remember hating him in that too. Thank you, Travis. Yeah.
Oh.
He was in the first Venom movie, and he sucks in that movie too.
I don't remember enough, but
was that maybe the second one?
Is Riot the red one? No, that's Carnage.
No, it's Carnage. Come on.
Sorry.
Riot's the white one?
I don't know.
I think. Because Venom's black with white, and Riot I think is white with black.
Oh, right. Okay.
But no one thinks about Riot because he's like maybe the least known or popular symbiote.
He does have one of the worst
symbiote, as they like.
Yeah.
Do you remember the funny? You probably don't remember this, but there was a whole thing when the first trailer for Venom dropped.
Okay.
And one of the characters in that, it might have been Riz, I don't remember exactly, said symbiote really weird. They're like symbiote.
Oh, okay.
And everyone was like, "Boo, boo! You're saying it weird." So they recut the trailer and had him and then said it differently.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
That's so funny.
Sorry, my bad. Silver silver, not white, like metal.
Okay, right.
Travis, though, coming in hot with the Bodhi love.
Yeah.
My favorite character in Rogue One, the most relatable, I think. His arc isn't to blow something up. It's just finding his voice. When he snags the cable around the box, you just feel it. Yeah. I agree. I think that's probably why I come around to him a lot more in this viewing. Yeah. Because he really embodies a lot of what the show Andor is trying to tell people. Yeah. He's like, it's like Bodhi watched Andor for season 1 and 2 and was like, I'm inspired. I should do something.
Yes, right? Yeah. Like the rest of us. We're like, yeah, we would be him defecting and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff, do you just have this knowledge off the top of your head? Because it's very impressive. Jenny Slate's Dr. Skirth, or Skirt maybe, said symbiote. And symbiote. In the trailer. So I don't know how you find this stuff. I wish we had like a producer. Travis, do you want to come on as a producer?
Yeah,
just,
he basically is at this point.
Able to just like drop some knowledge, like help do our research while we're on the air. That'd be great. Maybe flick some buttons, turn some things on and off. I don't know.
Yeah, you can have the studio set up for us.
Right, that's right.
So I don't have to wait for Julian to do
all
it every
remotely,
time.
Obviously. Yeah. It doesn't take that long. All right. It's usually just that my notes aren't done. Yeah. If it was just, hey, go from sitting in front of the computer to getting streaming, that's a 5-minute job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm moving quickly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So the only thing before we move on from Bodhi, I'll mention one last thing.
Okay.
The behind the scenes for Rogue One mentions how when Riz was offered the role, he was like recording different, like he'd gotten this like script, right? And was doing like his own little like, what's it called? He's doing his own little takes.
Okay.
On
yeah.
it. And apparently he was just recording them on his phone, and he was like, he kept doing them over and over and over and over again, like different versions of Bodhi.
Oh, okay.
Trying it in different ways.
Yeah.
And he sent them all to Gareth, and he was like, and at one point he's like, "Oh man, I feel like I fucked this up. I've sent him too many." I feel like
I'm being annoying.
It's like I'm being annoying.
Yeah.
I already got the role. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I remember, and Gareth comes off as like he did kind of seem like he was annoyed by it, which is kind of funny.
He's just like, he
just kept sending me these different takes.
I'm sure they all looked kind of the same.
They're all, I mean, it's all shot from like a phone on a table, and he's like standing above it. It's like bad angle.
Yeah.
And he's like he's like got his shirt up funny, and he's like one where he's got like a shirt tied around his head. So he's like he's just doing different versions of the character. I just feel like, again, my last comment on Riz Ahmed, which is I just think he tries to do too much.
Okay.
All the time. It's like, tone it down a bit, man.
Gotcha.
You know?
Gotcha.
Okay. So he sentenced to the Borg Gullet. I love the line from Saw. Is like, he'll learn the truth. Problem is, people tend to lose their mind.
People might lose their mind.
They tend to lose their mind.
God, Saw. Like,
yeah.
what
the
fuck?
So
he just has like no concept for like, people being assets at all.
No.
Like he's just like, maybe you're lying. I'm just gonna get.
He assumes everyone's lying.
Big tentacle monster to mess with your brain.
Yeah.
Like because he's so paranoid.
And it's like, okay, he was right, but now that's all you have. But yes, he did provide the message, and
right.
That's all. It's yeah. Okay, here's the last thing from Travis. In many ways, Bodhi to me is an alternate Cyril, the dweebish, by-the-book guy who goes rogue when something goes wrong that he can't live with.
Right.
Then they get taken out abruptly. Yeah, I mean, Bodhi's death is pretty unceremonious. Like he just gets blown up by a random grenade. So yeah, I get that. I mean, and I feel that it's like, again, it's like if Cyril had been able to watch Andor from some sort of weird way, then he might have been, inspired in a different way. Yeah. But so we get this kind of great.
I do still feel like too, though, that it's that same theme throughout kind of Rogue One, where it's like the Empire's just like that second too late. Like you blew him up a little too late because he got his message out to the fleet, right? So it's just like that classic theme that we always see.
Kind of like that comes back to that like fate idea.
Yeah,
right? It's like he was fated to get that message out because without that message, then the plans don't reach the ship, and then they don't get to R2 and all that stuff.
Exactly. So. It's almost like that turn too, where in Andor we see like Cassian always being like a little bit too late. He's a little bit too late when his mom dies. He's a little bit too late to save Brasso.
Yeah.
Like he's always a little bit too late on the the Empire's messing with him, right? But then now it's kind of like turning, and the rebellion's kind of getting that like curve back. So
yeah, I mean, there's also a bit of like, there's this, I don't know, the evil is incompetent. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Empire is like fighting against destiny because, as Nemec's the Manifesto talks about, right? It takes constant effort, it leaks, it breaks, all those things, and it's like this natural state of the world is not dominance over all things, right? It's in harmony with all things, right? And the Force, it binds us, connects us, all those things. So it's like they're constantly fighting the natural order, and by doing so, it makes their job 10x harder than it needs to be, and that for that reason it gives the rebellion, or gives the quote unquote good guys, just enough of a leg up to be successful against a much more quote unquote powerful bad guy.
And because the Empire keeps killing their best guys,
and they keep killing
their
best guys. We talked about that last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have no concept of like
mistakes,
continuity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learning from your mistakes, unheard of.
Yeah, why would you do
You
that?
die.
Why would you do that when you can either throw them in prison or have them kill themselves?
Yeah.
Or both.
Punishment.
Yeah.
And death. Actually.
Okay,
Works
so
much better.
we get then. We actually mentioned Saw. This is the first time we saw since the Clone Wars.
Yes.
And the people in the behind the scenes, including Pablo Hidalgo, friend of the show, are all giddy about the fact that they found this character from the Clone Wars that gave this movie a little bit more of a connection through line,
right,
and fit the role that they needed and all this stuff, and they were so happy about it. And obviously, Saw is a very different character from the character I find going rewatching that arc on Onderon.
When he's young?
Yeah, he's very brash and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
he's not.
He comes across, like, when Forrest Whitaker takes him over, he becomes almost completely different character.
Oh, yeah. No, he's way less insane in.
Well, yeah, but he's like, that's right before his sister dies and all that stuff, obviously. But then, like, he becomes much more. And then I guess from a timeline perspective, the next time we see him is in Bad Batch.
Rebels. No, we see him in Rebels.
Yes, but Bad Batch would be first.
Bad Batch. Oh, okay. Yes.
It's the first Imperial mission.
Bad Batch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's the reason our boy Tech dies, pretty much.
Well, not the only reason.
He's part of the reason.
Yeah, man. R.I.P. Tech.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I mean, though. He's all about results and doesn't really care how they happen.
Yeah.
And who gets lost in the way.
Well, yeah, he just believes so purely in this concept that the Empire needs to be destroyed at all costs.
Yeah. But man,
really
Forrest
believes in that
Whitaker
all
does
costs.
a good job.
Yeah, the craziest thing about Forrest Whitaker is he has this little behind the scenes thing where he's talking about deciding to go on with the characters. Yeah, I watched the Clone Wars stuff, and he's just so his voice is so calm and relaxed.
What, you expect him to be?
No. I'm just like, sometimes there's
I get it though. It's like so
something.
different.
It's like he's just so completely. He's just talking so eloquently about like this character and it's his depth, and like he's tortured and this like opposite version of Darth Vader, and he's got this mask, and he's talking about who's he talking? Oh, Bodhi. He's talking about Riz Ahmed. He's like, I love working with Riz. He's got this effervescence. He said effervescence.
Effervescence.
And I was like, man, that's a great
Adorable.
word.
It is kind of those things where it like shocks you. And for me, it's always when someone puts on an American accent really, really well, and then you hear the accent shock, you're like, oh shit, they're like British or they're whatever.
Even Mon, who's super Irish,
yes,
has that when I'm like, oh yeah, she's Irish, and she says
Irish.
these Irish things, but then she has this super posh British accent.
Yeah, right. It's just so good when you can like have that.
And Travis, you're a little late to the party because we already talked about Bix holding the baby, looking at the sunset, which is at the same time as Cassian looking at the Death Star.
Yeah.
Killing him. Yeah. Just making that whole thing a little bit sadder. He did mention here, though, I like how sunsets in Star Wars represents a thing people move toward for hope.
Right.
But the source of it is sad. Luke sees a sunset only to be standing before his dad's burning corpse.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The big part of the message of Andor was sacrifice. And this movie talks about sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
Right? There's a great line from Andor. It's like how so many people sacrificed everything. So many things. Right? And, of course, you think about all the people that from Andor from that.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, my friend couldn't differentiate between Forrest Whitaker and Martin Lawrence. The version of Saw would have been something.
Horrible.
Tony. Yeah, that's funny.
Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, that's a very different version of Saw Gerrera. Forrest Whitaker is like a top 10 actor.
He's
and
phenomenal.
like everything he does is like brilliant, and he just again his commitment to this character is like unmatched. He's returned to play Saw so many times since Rogue One.
Just so good at it.
Yeah,
but
it's really impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's hopping from the oxygen mask, etc. Death Star update. First time we meet CG Tarkin. Not great, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think having Tarkin here is cool. I think
it is.
I'd like having Tarkin more involved in a story and being an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's the worst in this.
Instead of just being yeah. My favorite moment is when he's like, "Well, Director Krennic, I think I owe you an apology."
Yeah.
And for that, I am going to steal this program out.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just going to take it.
Right at the finish line.
Yeah.
Right. Oh man. I also really love, in terms of great lines about the Death Star, Vader's line of, "Its power to create problems has definitely been well proven."
Yeah. I think like Vader's whole thing, he's never really like fucked with the Death Star. He doesn't care.
Yeah, even A New Hope, he's like, it pales in comparison to the power of the Force.
Yeah, like he does not care about the Death Star.
Your hokey religion isn't going to save. It's not going to reclaim the stolen data tapes.
Yeah.
Or have the clairvoyance to find the rebel base.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I do love how Vader just does not care.
Have you seen the meme where it's like, props to this guy who's calling out his colleague for his weird religion at a work meeting? Yeah.
And he just choked out.
Yeah,
for
it's so funny.
His weird religion.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah.
We
get.
okay.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just good. It's
so
good.
We get CG Tarkin. He references lots of delays and setbacks. It's fun to think about some of the stuff that we know from Andor and other stuff media about how things were made difficult for finalizing the Death Star.
Yeah.
There's this reference to the Senate probably not being a problem once it's done, which of course we see. It's like, well, we have the Death Star now. We don't need the Senate.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They dissolve it at that time because Krennic is like, well, what about the Senate and all these stuff? It's like, don't worry about that. It's not going to be an issue.
Doesn't matter because we're going to blow up Alderaan.
We already have a plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and then no one's going to ever say anything to us about whatever we want to do.
Travis says, I think Tarkin would have been better kept in reflections from behind or just showing parts of his face. Finding creative ways to move around his face would have been fun. I still like
or like hollows too.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that you could have done, but he's like face is front and center close-ups.
I think they could at the time. I remember at the time being like, "Oh, this is really cool," because obviously we don't have that actor anymore.
Just recast him.
Yeah, that's true. You could recast. The
actor that they had playing his body looks a lot like him already.
Yeah,
anyway.
Fair enough. You're right. They really could have recast it for whatever reason they felt like.
Or get the guy who plays Hirt, who has the same cheekbones.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I do think if they wanted to, they could go back and clean that up a bit and make it look.
Well, that's the thing. Our
set is too shiny.
We just saw a version of a very well done de-aging of Stellan Skarsgård for Andor.
Yeah.
The technology exists now to do it well, but if there's nothing like Star Wars, like trying to do something with technology that isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So
hey, classic though.
That's really one of their best calling cards. Which is like, let's try to make an entirely CG character. People will love that.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of those entirely CG characters did work.
Yeah.
No, credits won't be fine.
Yeah.
That stuff worked, but Jar Jar didn't. That's okay.
He wasn't entirely CG.
Oh yeah, that's true. Parts
had a
of
guy.
Him, parts of him was in a suit.
Yeah,
Ahmed Best. Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? He saves Grogu.
Yeah.
Kelleran Beck. Yeah.
Nice. Good pull.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's
a good pull.
Yeah.
So we also get some flashbacks to Galen and Krennic when they were younger, like cheersing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell when that would have been.
Yeah.
It's like, was it before it must have been before they had Jin.
Probably.
Yeah. So it would have been maybe 20 years ago, but it couldn't be more. They couldn't, maybe at tops it's 19 years ago. They were wearing Imperial uniforms, so it's like anywhere from between 15 to 19 years prior. You know, but I love how is it Layla or whatever his wife's name is, just looks absolutely miserable.
Yeah,
it's great. Okay, so
Lyra.
Yeah. Oh look, it's Lyra back from the dead. What a miracle.
Yeah. Such a dick. Krennic is such a dick,
but he's so sassy.
It's just funny seeing the trickle down effect in the empire of like everybody being like shitty to the
dick to
person
a dick,
directly
yeah.
below them, taking stuff from them, being like, that's mine now, like F you. Like it's just wild.
Okay, Travis said my Watto sounded like Cassian, and I don't think. I'm sure. I think that's insulting to Cassian, actually.
What is
Or
Cassian
Diego
supposed to be?
Luna.
Kind of French? Right?
No, he's Cassian's Mexican actor. Diego Luna is a Mexican actor. He has a Mexican accent.
Really?
Tony Gilroy talks about how he has to write around his accent.
Really?
Yeah.
I always thought his accent sounded a little more French, not Spanish.
Well, it's a romantic language. It's a
guess, yeah.
Spanish accent. Yeah.
Could be interesting. He
Um.
had to write around his Spanish accent. All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Okay, so we go back to Jeddah. The Star Destroyer sitting over the Holy City is beautiful. We talked about that. An Andor connection. They leave K2 in the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Gilroy has talked a lot since the end of Andor about how K2 is a story killer. He's so powerful that it's like he's able to get out of any problem. So you have to like sideline K2 so you can have
that makes
drama.
Sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
So he's like it's hard to find ways to sideline him all the time.
Yeah.
So
they are so crazy strong.
Yeah, like we'll leave him in the ship is like a constant. And the funny thing about this one is like he leaves in the ship and then they send him back to the ship after he has his little save.
Right.
Yeah. So the city streets of Jeddah City are, I think, vibrant, exciting. I think I forgot that we get to go to the actual city, and it's fun to actually be in there and see the architecture.
It also bums me out though because I know it blows up, and there's like families in the market and kids running around. So.
Okay, so the Coruscant scene shown in the novel Catalyst, this is from Travis Mitchell, is about 2 years after the Vengeance Sith. I've actually read that novel, but I read that around the time of Rogue One, so it's been a long time.
Fair enough.
So maybe it's time to revisit that. But I do remember thinking it was cool that they included the full scene of that in the book when you only see like 3-second snippet of it in the movie. They're celebrating something. I don't remember. Travis will tell me. Okay, so we get the Andor, the line, "The rebellions are built on hope" here. This is when he says it to Jin for the first time. We meet Chirrut and Baz. I love Chirrut's introduction here because he senses Jin's kyber crystal. He's like talking, and it's like she's like, "You talking to me?"
Yeah.
And then there's this reference to how it focuses lightsabers power and like this like a little bit of kyber crystal lore in this movie that's not interested in doing really any of that. And we learn about how he's this guardian of the wills. Which is this connection to original George Lucas sequel concepts. Right. And so they're basically protectors of these warrior monks. And then you get this line about like, "Don't worry about my friend Baz here. He's just he's just grouchy." Yeah. And then Cassian has this thing about he wants to hurry because he feels that the town is about to blow. I love this as a connection to Andor. Yeah. As someone who experienced the Gorman massacre and was like, this town's about to pop. So is this one, and we should really. I saw it last time. That tension. I don't think we shouldn't be here if that's the case. Yeah. So we get this great action sequence with this Imperial tank. By the way, another trooper, the tank driver trooper, is another one I have an action figure of. Oh. That they invent for this one.
I didn't realize he looks different.
Well, it's got this like long piece, and he's not really wearing a lot of armor. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's like a longer helmet piece, and then more like clothes instead of armor. Right. Because he's in a tank, so like how much armor do you need?
Right. Yes. Fair.
Not that the stormtrooper armor does anything. No. To protect them anyway.
It just really protects their butts and junk, though.
Yeah, the cod piece is nice. Yeah. Wow. So there's this really cool sequence with Saw's partisans stealing. What's their plan? Like we don't know about like why they want these kybers, or if it's just to interfere with the.
I think they're. Yeah, they just keep attacking these transports, and like even Mon and
it's like
they're
like,
stop doing that. Like you're just drawing more attention to yourselves. He's like, wow, they're mining kyber, right? So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they're getting info, but yeah, I think they're just a little more worried that you guys are. What are you doing? Like, just stop.
It's like you're just making
causing trouble.
You're not doing anything.
No,
like
useful,
strategic, or helpful. Because like, what are you gonna do with these kyber crystals? It's like if you could sell them maybe and like make money on the black market to fund your operations or something. I don't know. Anyway, there's this really cool sequence of the tank explodes a wall and all this. There's a lot of chaos and fighting. there's this moment where Jin shoots a KX droid, and then K2's like, "How did you know that was not me?" And she's like, "Yeah, totally."
Yeah, totally. Sure. Yeah.
And
yeah,
the one thing that here's the one thing that is inconsistent here, which is that the KX droids are like indestructible, like Terminators.
Yeah.
On Gorman, and then one shot kills it.
Yeah.
In this one, so
in this one,
okay. So the plot holes is how do they know where Jin was, and the KX droids are not indestructible.
Not indestructible. Maybe she's got a real good gun. I don't know.
Yeah, a super powerful blaster.
Super powerful blaster.
Yeah. Anyway, they're saved by K2. There's that funny sequence where he slaps Cassian. There's a fresh one if you melt off again. And then
I love how the stormtrooper like clocks.
He's like, that's really weird.
You're acting weird.
Yeah.
Like you need to go for maintenance.
We'll take
or
them from here. Yeah. No, I think it's like, no, I've taken this far. I think I can manage. Just tell me which way to go.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you really don't sound like a droid now.
Yeah, like what's wrong with you?
And so then they get saved again, but this time by Chirrut and Baz, and this amazing blind kung fu scene with Chirrut just wrecking shop with his stick.
Yeah.
Which maybe proves that Donnie is the best Ninja Turtle.
I mean, maybe. And so anyway, that's amazing introduction to this character that we barely know. Yeah.
And establishing him as this like, yeah, he's blind. And he's still able to wreck shop, and you're like, okay, so he's got this like connection to the Force, but he's not a Jedi.
Right.
He's this other thing. It's a cool concept that we don't really get a lot of time to explore, but you just it's established through action.
It's very just like also like old school kung fu movie monks, right? Like they're with their super strong like punches, and like, it's just their different style of fighting, which I always love when we get like Japanese versions influence in Star Wars.
And they're technically Chinese actors, but
fair enough. I just feel like the monks, I don't know. I always think of like old school Japanese like kung fu movies.
These are great actors, and the cynical side of me is like they got Chinese actors because they really wanted a Chinese audience to get engaged with this movie.
Oh, okay.
And they struggle with getting Star Wars popular in China.
Huh.
And both things can be true, that we're lucky to have those actors here because they're really good, but also
really good.
They were hired because they needed a little bit more Chinese influence.
Yeah.
To get anyway. That's it.
They did well, and they worked.
There was a era in Hollywood where that was like a big thing, where like they had to incorporate something Chinese so that they could get the Chinese box office on board.
Got ya.
Oh yeah, and it's a good point here. So he mentions that it's funny that the two guys from the cantina in episode 4, which is like another one of those like we don't need this reference.
Yeah,
it's like why is it's Dr. Baba or whatever, and
arm cut off, right?
Yeah, the guys.
Yeah,
he's wanted in 3 systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
he doesn't like you.
He doesn't like you. Yeah, right. And it's so funny. And then we just get this weird shot of the arm on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of bloody. But like
good.
it looks like
good
ketchup.
It's
really It's
I love how these guys just pop up everywhere.
Yeah,
it's quite funny.
How
did they get off Jeddah?
And Dr. Vizinius or whatever the name is.
I don't even know.
And that's their names, so something like that. I know that's not exactly correct. Travis will tell me.
Dr. Baba.
It's something like there's one of them's a doctor.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, them appearing here is weird, but yeah, they survived the explosion on Jeddah.
Mm-hmm.
They're on their way out at this moment. And so, and then I think Travis clarifies what they're celebrating in that flashback, which is that they made the Geonosians into a sweatshop to make the Death Star.
God.
I don't know if that's confirmed or if that's just a funny joke, but either way, it's yeah. And also, here's a question: is the Death Star on the dark side of Jeddah this whole time, or does it arrive at Jeddah?
I literally do not know. I'm confused about that too, about whether it shows up. So like, can it move when it's not?
Well, so the thing
it comes through hyperspace.
Rogue One, it does travel through hyperspace.
Yeah.
But the thing about Star Wars is they've never shown the Death Star travel through hyperspace.
No, never. But probably because it would look stupid.
It would look stupid.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it would look
so dumb. It would look super dumb.
Yeah.
So it's like instead it just appears
which
as
is scarier.
Needed. Yeah.
Which is scarier when it just like shows up all of a sudden. But yeah, you're right. Like just this ball flying through hyperspace would look real dumb.
Yeah, it's like anyway, it doesn't matter. My assumption is that it arrives at Jeddah here, but my other thinking is that they were loading all
like,
those all that
yeah,
stuff from
you're
Jeddah
right.
onto the Death
And
Star,
then
and
it
it was
just goes,
right
like,
there,
comes
and then it's just on the
around.
other
Yeah,
side.
that would
and
make
can-
sense too.
Yeah,
because they are unloading. Yeah, that makes sense.
right.
Actually.
So that anyway, it doesn't really matter. Either one works, but that's my headcanon. Okay, so they get then captured by the partisans. They get taken to Saw's jail. They get thrown in jail.
Mm-hmm.
There's that reference we talked about earlier about him being the first time in jail.
Right.
My assumption is he's just lying about that.
Yeah.
We get the cool shot of like these establishing shot of like Saw's partisans, and I was like, they're hard as fuck. Like,
yeah. Right?
they're like so scary looking. They're
They
like
are.
all wearing like scary face paint and stuff, and it's like, man, these people look tortured.
Yeah.
And
They're
would kill you at a
nuts.
moment's notice.
They absolutely would too.
Yeah. And then there's this line where he exchanges with Chirrut about the Force, and Cassian says he feels that the Force and him have different priorities, which I think is like a nice like connection to that Force healer thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Him being more on board with that the Force does play a role, but he doesn't see it like benefiting him
Yeah.
necessarily.
I think even like his priority still would be like getting back to
Yeah,
Bix.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing this for a reason.
Yeah,
It's not just
yeah.
he's not just a true believer. He
Right.
has his own life.
Yeah.
Jin and Saw have their reunion, and this is the first you learn that she was raised by Saw, which again opens a lot of questions about like
Yeah.
what kind of person Saw actually is,
Right.
and then or what kind of like performance he puts on for everyone else.
Yeah.
And he does really soften a lot when he's in front of Jin.
He
Which
does.
is
Yeah, he
interesting.
really does.
And he says that he was her best soldier,
Mhm.
and that he had to leave her behind because he was like concerned for her safety, which is like
Right.
feels very opposed to the Saw that we know,
Yeah, it doesn't feel like something Saw would do for anybody else except
or
her.
anyone at all. Like
but-
yeah, so it's like he obviously had some sort of like parental
Yeah,
connection.
I do get the feeling though that he's known her since she was
a
like a baby, right?
Right,
So
which
it's a little
how-
different.
So now they want to know how how Galen knows Saw so
Yeah,
well, because
yeah.
Galen was an Imperial scientist and Saw was a full-blown
Always.
terrorist at that point.
Always a rebel.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
anyway,
Maybe
interesting
Saw
how
brings him into the cause. He's the one that kind of
I mean,
turns
I
him.
think you have to assume probably.
Yeah. It's a what's the Rebels? It's the turn of with the mutton chops there.
Oh.
Callus.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the Callus.
The Callus
yeah,
turn.
The Callus
Mutton
Zeb
chops.
turn.
Mutton chops.
He's got
That
the
guy with the
mutton
mutton chops. Yeah. The mole.
Yeah.
I'm the mole. God,
yeah,
that movie
he's
sucks.
Fulcrum.
Yeah. Okay, so I love the line from Saw because she's like, I don't care. I've been here to deliver this message, and now I want to leave.
Right.
And he's like, do you not care about the cause?
Mm-hmm.
Do you care not for the cause? I think is the exact phrasing that he
Mhm.
uses. And he says, like, how would you feel when the Imperial flags fly unopposed across the galaxy? And
Yeah.
her answer is extremely cynical.
Yeah.
It's not a problem if you don't look up.
yeah.
So it's very selfish.
Very privileged. Yeah.
Jade.
It's-
Well, she's
yeah.
not that privileged.
I'm not saying that's privilege, but it's like the line that we get in our own timeline of like, oh, I'm just like not into politics. It's
Oh,
like, it must
yeah,
be
yeah.
so nice
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you
How nice
don't
for you.
have to be don't have to
Concerned.
care about the
Right.
politics of like other people and
Yeah.
like, what's going on in the world.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely a privilege. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's nepo baby shit for sure.
Yeah.
Um.
Nepo baby shit.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's just interesting seeing because she had like what's great about this scene is it's such a hard pivot for Jin once she sees the message from her father.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we then get this, I think, amazing performance in this message that he is sharing. He's recorded for the rebels,
right.
right? But he includes this like coda at the end, which is
Mhm.
like, Jin, if you're listening, I did this all for you.
Right.
This is all, I've wasted. He says, I feel like I've wasted most of my life,
yeah.
which I feel like is so sad because he's this brilliant scientist, by the way. Mads Mikkelsen, great actor.
Oh, he's so good.
More Mikkelsens in Star Wars, the better. And
he's fantastic at everything he does.
yeah, Le Chiffre, one of the best Bond villains.
yeah.
And so he's basically saying he's wasted his whole life because he's this great scientist and he had to work on this fucking weapon his entire life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's some sadness there to that. he explained. A lot of this message is like exposition of the Death Star plans.
Mm-hmm.
I built this flaw so deep into the system that they'll never find it. A shot to the reactor core will start a chain reaction and destroy the whole station.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you get and the plans are on Scarif. Go get the plans. They're on Scarif. That's important. Know that. And then there's this like heart-to-heart connection between her and her dad. And then the saddest part is that she doesn't get to keep the recording.
Yeah.
It gets destroyed.
Yeah.
So that sucks. Any thoughts on this little turn?
No, I really like this scene between her and Saw. I like how you said I love getting to see him like soften a little bit and their interchange. And it's nice 'cause she obviously hasn't seen her dad in a decade at this point.
15 years.
Yeah, so getting to have this message is probably so...
Oh, my God. It would be life-changing.
Life-changing, yeah. It's like you haven't seen your dad and you just assumed he was dead. You're getting a little jaded and, like, this is the last message he gets. Not necessarily the last message, but,
I love that he says he learned to lie.
Learned to lie, yeah.
I learned to lie.
He's a bad liar.
Right. He said, I learned to lie. I played the role of a defeated scientist doing what I was told to do, but I was secretly working in the background to fuck with them.
Yeah. Calls her as Stardust again.
Oh, yeah. They really hammer that home in that book, by the way, in Catalyst.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The Stardust thing is like, maybe I'm misremembering because it's been a while, but like they really hammer that Stardust thing home. Meanwhile, Tarkin wants a test of the Death Star laser on Jedha. He says he doesn't want to destroy the whole planet. He just wants to send a message, not a manifesto, which I like as a connection to Nemec's manifesto.
Yeah.
Not sure why destroying the whole planet is a manifesto. I guess it's like a bigger message.
Yeah.
Whatever. Travis suggests that it might have been distracting, but would have been interesting if Andor Season 2 used some of the original Rogue One footage before the reshoots as dreams as Cassian and Jyn survived in one ending. Yeah, I guess. I mean, always in motion the future is, right? So that could have been impactful. I just think that Gareth Edwards, Tony Gilroy was not interested in that type of storytelling.
Right, yeah.
That is like classic Star Wars storytelling. Like, I saw my mom killed and therefore I went and just killed the children and the women too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that kind of stuff, works, I think, in a more force-heavy story, and it's just not the story that they were telling. Okay, so they do test the laser. They destroy Jedha City, and this is the first time we ever get to see the Death Star used in a way that doesn't destroy a planet, and it looks incredible.
Yeah.
There's this great line from he's like, "Oh, it's beautiful," that Krennic says, and I kind of agree,
right?
Like in a kind of like morbid way, but it's like what you see this like the shockwaves going out and like the explosion reaching up into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And like it's like beyond a nuke. It's like 50 nukes, 100 nukes going off at once, and it's a single reactor explosion. And it's so obviously like again the great line from K2. It's like we have a problem on the horizon.
Yeah,
there is no horizon.
There is no horizon.
Just
showing like a wave of
like
Earth.
The planet crust is like peeling back, and like
it looks like a tsunami of like planet. Yeah.
So that's why I thought that maybe most of the partisans were killed because how did they get away in time?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, some of them must have.
Some of them must have, yeah. But
I love how overwhelming Galen's message is. It takes dense exposition. It presents it as such, but it's the last thing Jyn gets to hear. Yeah, he's very concise, and like he's like, I need to get this message across because it's very important. You know the technical details of how this works so that you can execute on it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get that out in like in a way that only a scientist can do, which is like, I'm going to explain this once and very concisely.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to turn the page and get to the part where I care about talking to my daughter.
Yeah.
Which is a nice idea. Because he doesn't even know if this message would ever be seen by her, or if she's even alive.
But yeah.
Which is also sad.
That's so true.
So, but he does get to find out right before he dies. So there's that. Anyway, so yeah, we had this great moment with the Death Star explosion. really exciting, like escape from disaster movie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then Tarkin says he owes an apology, and the apology is taking over the program.
He's like, oh, this thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, he blames recent security breaches, right? He mentions like Bodhi, which that's I think what the movie was referencing.
Right.
But now it's like, oh no, now we can think about Andor in context of that. Too.
Yeah, exactly. You can go all the way back to Partagast and
Yeah.
everything else. Yeah.
And he calls him not fit to be a military director, which I do think is interesting because he's not really a military director. He gets some military assets that he has at his command, but he's not. He's more of like a project manager.
Yeah.
He's like a really important project manager.
Yeah, like an engineer.
Yeah, kind of. And so he's overseeing the construction of this project, and like we don't know his schooling or where he came up or how that stuff works, but it's like there's this bit of like Tarkin being like, "You're not suited for this.
Yeah.
Like it takes a different, personality. Someone who's much meaner, like me."
Yeah.
Anyway, so they escape. And they need to get to Iadu. I call it Iadu. In the movie, they call it Edu.
Edu, yeah.
But there's an A in there, and I think Iadu sounds cooler, so I'm just going to do that. Anyway, they confirm on the way. They confirm the existence. This is a connection to Andor also, because they say when they leave on his U-wing that it's getting fitted for hypercoms next week. So he uses those hypercoms to contact Yavin, and at Yavin, they're like, "Oh shit, Jedda's gone?
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. So it's real.
Yeah.
Bad news, us. Continue with your mission. Go kill Galen." And they're going to the Kyber refinery, which is on Edu. Edu, by the way, is mentioned. That was that science facility that they mentioned in Andor. I couldn't remember what it was called at the time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And Krennic is also going there after the test, but it's like it's less clear why he's going there. But I think the reason is he's going to just tie up loose ends.
Yeah.
The laser works. We don't need these engineers anymore.
Right.
So we're just going to kill them all.
Yeah.
Which feels dumb because it's like, okay, what if...
Well, and because there's like a data leak or security breach, right?
Right, I guess. That was like, go tie up these loose ends on Edu. I guess that's right.
Yeah. It's like there's a leak somewhere there. Figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you just use an excuse to tie up those loose ends also.
Yeah.
So again, just another sequence of, we're at the same place as Krennic, but we're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So we have this like Bodhi stuff where he's like coming out of him being so fucked up from the Borg gullet. Talks about how Galen told him he could make things right by helping the rebellion. It's like this nice moment for them. They then crash land on the surface in a storm. They can't be reached by Yavin because their radios are down. So they send a squad of X-Wings and Y-Wings. I always thought that sequence was cool. Scramble the squad or whatever they say.
Yeah.
And they get up in the air. I think it's Blue Squadron that comes in. And then you get this great moment where Chirrut asks if Andor looks like a killer.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone's like, why are you asking that?
Yeah.
Well, the Force like moves darkly around someone who's about to kill.
Yeah.
Right? And then that tips Jyn off to this idea that he's there to actually kill her dad, not rescue him.
Right.
So she goes out after him, and then Chirrut and Baz go out after them because they're not leaving them behind. It's this nice because like it's fun to think that Chirrut and Baz end up with them just by happenstance.
Right, yeah.
And then
they're like, look, get on the ship.
Right. And then they're in their own, then they like join them on the U-wing. They could have easily just been like, sorry, not for rebels only.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, right.
They wouldn't do that. That's obviously not. Yeah. And so they just become like this de facto part of the team, and to the point where they're given command of squad.
Of a squad.
Later I was like, what? Come on. That seems a bit much.
They saved them a couple times at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Also, how badass is the no-look TIE fighter like one shot that Chirrut does?
So good.
He's just like,
yeah,
it's so sick. Yeah. And he's using like a bowcaster too. It's like badass.
You have to watch our live stream to be
able
to
see
Julian's...
staring off into the distance like I can't see
Julian's reenactment of that.
Yeah.
Things you're only gonna get.
Things you only see on the live stream. Yeah. Available in technically recorded after the fact and available on our YouTube page. but I don't think
YouTube.
But
page?
I know that for a fact. Yeah, we have a YouTube page.
You mean channel?
Channel, whatever.
Yeah, YouTube
page. What,
Sounded like a boomer.
Yeah,
over
okay,
here.
boomer.
Yeah, find us on our Facebook page.
Yeah, or on the Facebook. Yeah, on the YouTubes. Boomers always add S's to things that don't have S's at the end for some reason, and thes in front of things that don't have thes.
Yeah, my mom calls it her face page.
That's funny. So I used to work at Stereo, the nightclub.
The nightclub, yes.
Yeah. My mom used to call it stereos.
Stereos.
I was like, there's no S, Mom. Okay.
You going to work at the Stereos?
You're going to Stereos tonight?
Yeah.
Yes, Mom. I'm going to work at the Stereos. Yeah. That's funny. I mean, not that Stereo's a great name for a nightclub,
no,
but it's like,
not.
But whatever. Yeah. Chirrut and Baz save them. This is from Travis. But also are surviving witnesses to verify what happened on Jeddah. That is true. That's a good point. There's like 15 of those people that survived.
Yeah,
to witness
not many.
that. Edu was designed after LV-426 in Aliens. I think it looks really cool. It does. It is, in retrospect, not now knowing that, it does look like the same jagged rocks and like the storm situation going on. It's cool. Any connection to Aliens is cool to me.
Always,
The visual language of Aliens is like incomparable, basically. It's like 90% of what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they crash land, yada yada yada. There's this then standoff and sniper sequence at the landing platform. I think this sequence is so cool.
Yeah.
I love how it's in the rain.
Ugh.
The ship, you have this really cool design ship of this kind of like transport thing that Krennic uses. It's like Lambda-esque.
Yeah,
and it's like folding wings and stuff.
Folding wings, yeah.
But it has like a front. Anyway, it's like this, it's great. Or back, I think. I don't remember how it works, the landing part. But you come out and you have this like, everyone's go gather your engineers. I have an announcement to make, and Krennic's out there, and Galen's out there, and he's wearing this cool uniform, and he wants to find the leak, and you get this great moment of Galen standing up for his engineers and saying, "It was me. I did it. Don't spare them. They die anyway," which sucks. Of course. You can see that coming a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
Andor's looking for a shot, but he chooses not to shoot, which I think is like this great decision. Instead of making him so, like, he would have been very unlikable, I think, if he did that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about this movie is they constantly set up a ticking clock of some impending doom.
Right.
Like, in every sequence, basically.
Yeah.
And it gives the movie so much momentum and suspense, right? The difference between suspense and surprise.
Right.
We know that Andor's looking for the shot, and that adds a lot of suspense. But also, we know that there's a rebel bombing squadron heading their way, and they're on site. And there's that great sequence with K2, rebels on site, call off the attack, and it's like, it's too late.
It's too late,
right? And it's like, that's such a cool moment, right? And I was like on the edge of my seat when this was going on the first time and thinking like, wow, this is so tense. It's so cool. You see Jin make a decision. She's going to go and like climb up there. I thought this was so funny. It's like, she'll just go down to this massive valley and then climb up this massive ladder.
This massive tower.
And it's like, and it takes like 2 seconds for her to do that. But it's like, it's movie magic. You just got to cut around that stuff. So, and then she gets there just in time to see the rebel squad drop a bomb and kill her dad, basically.
Yeah.
I love, like, and that's such a cool moment watching that bomb land and hit that platform, not hit Krennic's ship, which comes out unscathed, but basically causing havoc everywhere else.
Yeah.
Sorry, Travis says this was the scene in the theater where someone let out the worst fart ever, and it almost ruined the scene. Oh man, sorry about that, Travis. That sounds rough. That's funny. That's so. Oh, I was thinking it was like one of those like whiny ones that like is long and then like really stinks. That would be bad.
Who is farting in a movie theater? Like
lots of people fart in movie theaters. It's loud in there. Most of the time, you can't tell.
That's gross.
I farted in a movie theater.
You would. Terrible.
That's holding a fart in for 2 hours. Come on.
Just gonna make everyone around you smell your
Well, not all
stink?
my farts stink, so I take.
You don't know that ahead of time.
I take a gamble that sometimes I'm like, I'm going with this one.
That's
Sometimes you know if they're gonna. Sometimes you know if they're gonna, and that's when you hold it in.
It's a judgment of character right there. If you fart in movie theaters or not.
Listen, I don't do it for fun. It's just like sometimes
we'll make a poll.
Sometimes you have to fucking fart. It's not the end. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Leave the movie? Come on. I know that's what people are gonna say. Yeah, get up and leave, but no. Sometimes you just gotta roll the dice.
Hold it in. It just goes back up.
It just goes back up. Comes up the other way.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I thought the sequence was great. Obviously, super tragic with Jin getting this like last moment with her dad. I think the one thing that makes me chuckle a little bit about this scene is how twisted up his legs are.
Oh, he's all like, yeah.
His whole legs are all twisted up. Yeah. Specifically, it was when Krennic's ship landed.
Yeah.
Just a smog of Egg McMuffin wind.
Ew.
Yeah, that's bad. McDonald's farts are bad ones. That's a no. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that.
Horrible.
Yeah. But like, you still got to eat McDonald's, though. What are you going to do? Not eat McDonald's? I love that. I love that food. I love it. It's a problem. I eat it too often. 3 to 4 times a month, probably. It's like once
Could be
a week.
worse.
And then sometimes I go through like stretches where I have none at all. But then I'll go through stretches where I have like 3 times a week.
Jesus.
I don't know. Listen, I'm weak to the smell of and taste of those delicious French fries.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also love a what are those like pancake sandwiches that they have?
McGriddles? Those are disgusting.
Oh, what do you mean?
Ugh, those are so gross.
Sweet and salty? Come on. That's
No.
good.
Vile.
Anyway, I don't even like normally sweet and salty, but that stuff's good. And it's like
Gross.
12,000 calories or
Yeah,
something
I think
crazy.
that's part of the reason why I'm like, never. I can't.
Yeah, well,
There's not a chance.
hey, listen, if you're exercising after, it's not a big deal.
Just negates everything.
Yeah, well.
To run for 2 hours.
Well, running is a bad way to burn calories, so.
What?
It's just, you don't burn that many.
Fair enough.
All right, so anyway, the ships come in. There's an action sequence. The U-wing is destroyed, or they can't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Sad, because that U-wing was like a running thing for like through Andor now.
Yeah.
And then they steal an Imperial transport and leave kind of without any problem. Just we don't see that part at all. They just like steal the transport and they're out of there.
Yeah.
But it's good closure for Jin to have this like see her father
Right.
die,
Yeah.
and so yeah, this whole thing. Then she's really mad on the way to Yavin. She's really upset with Cassian. Cassian tries to play it off like, you're in shock. I've seen it before. I feel like this has an Andor connection where it's like, I've seen people overreacting to things and I don't care to hear it from you.
Yeah.
But I think, and I don't know, what do you, okay. I'll before, I guys been talking so much. How do you think Andor like defends himself here?
Oh, I think with him, it's like you just joined the rebellion. Like you don't understand what sacrifices need to be made, what things need to be done for like kind of like the greater good, right?
Right.
Like it's just very much of like you just got here, you're
like,
new.
Who are
like,
you to say?
Yeah, like how dare you look down on me when like you don't even know what this is about? You don't even want to be in this rebellion.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
I
you're
think-
making things difficult.
I think he's right though.
Yeah, like he could. Well,
And she's right to be upset that he was
trying to kill her dad.
Yeah, but like it wasn't
Yeah.
his idea, and he's right.
No.
He said, "But I didn't. I didn't.
said
I could have, and I didn't."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, okay, fine."
Yeah.
And it's like,
But it's like, but he's right. Like
Whatever.
she has no idea what he's lost, what he's
Yeah.
been through, and it's a lot. We know how much it is at this point.
you're not the only one who's lost everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, great connection to Andor and
Ugh, yeah.
everything that show's about. Some of us just decided to do something about it.
Yeah.
Which is, again, that's like the whole message of Andor, which
It
is
is.
like, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like makes you feel like Andor in this movie feels like the main character when he says stuff like this.
Yeah.
After watching the show, it's like, can't ask for better. Then we go to Mustafar,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, oh, that's weird that we go to Mustafar, but we get to see
So
Vader's
good.
castle, which is the
So
first time I
fun.
think we ever get to see it. Really cool use of shadow as Vader emerges. Obviously, Vader has the most iconic profile, so
Yes.
you get to see him like his shadow like loom over Krennic. You also get to see him in his like back to tank or whatever that he's in.
Yeah.
We also get to see his like keeper guy, like the
Mhm.
guy who like watches over him, who's got like a whole comic book.
Oh, the creepy
Series?
doctor.
Yeah,
guy?
there's like a whole
Yeah.
series he has like
Yeah, he's a
dedicated
creep.
to that guy. Yeah, he's like an acolyte basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. A theme that runs from Andor. This is from Travis. I just like reading his stuff. I'll just. A theme that runs from Andor into Rogue One is how the deaths of these characters always is anticlimactic, but their death is not what we're supposed to remember. It's their best moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the building, their actions allowed for someone else's actions to do something that allowed for someone else's actions to do to get to the moment where Luke is able to destroy the Death Star.
Exactly. It's that trickle effect,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
The other podcast I listened to with Joanna Robinson and stuff on The Ringer, they talk about it as like a relay race. They're passing,
like a baton.
passing
the baton. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and again, it's like you are these characters are sacrificing. They're making the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of that larger, greater goal that is bigger than themselves.
Yeah,
right. And then again, it comes back to that question that I asked like week 1 of Andor season 2. Would you throw the pipe bomb if you had it? Would you throw it? Would it like?
Depends on
and
the
it's
stakes.
like you have to.
Yeah.
You have that's something only you can answer for yourself. So Mustafar, this is a pretty short sequence. This got a lot of pushback originally. Remember people complaining about Vader being like, he's too funny here and stuff like that. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's too sassy.
But it's so Anakin coded that it's like, it's perfect. It's the perfect
He's a little brat.
Anakin line, like a quip that he would have said to like Obi-Wan, right?
Which one? The don't choke on your aspirations?
Yes. Yeah. Like that is such an Anakin line in Vader. Like it's perfect. It's so well done.
I think so too. I think it, and you have James Earl Jones performing this. It's not his last time, I don't think, performing as Vader, but it's one of them.
Yeah.
And his voice obviously still older here, but it still works really well.
Yeah.
And I just like everything about it is like, it's just this very quick scene to show that Vader is in the movie, is in the world, so that he can use him again later.
Yeah.
And you have this moment with Krennic where he's like, I didn't bring you here to grovel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he has this like really whiny line where he's like, so I'm still in command?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you kidding me? You fucking loser.
You little weasel.
Yeah. So, but you'll tell the Emperor for me, right? You'll tell
Dad.
Yeah,
you'll
give him.
You'll
give him my. You'll tell him for me that I did the work. It was me, not Tarkin.
Yeah.
So we get the great line of "Careful not to choke on your aspirations, director."
Ambitions.
Yeah.
Isn't it ambitions?
What did I say?
Aspirations.
Ambitions.
Yeah.
Careful not to choke on your ambitions, director.
Yeah, so good.
I agree.
While choking.
And I remember I watched a supercut of like, because people at the time were so annoyed by this. Again, worst fan base.
Yeah.
No offense, but like Star Wars, come on guys, we got to work on that. Someone did a supercut of all of Vader's sassy moments.
Yeah.
Including like when he's choking out people and stuff, and like, yeah, it's great. Or when he's calling out his admirals for being idiots and like, all that kind of stuff. Great. And then like, so it to me, it's always lined up.
Yeah.
But I remember Dan from the podcast thought it was stupid. He's like, this is dumb, and he would never say that.
Yeah. I think he would. I think it's very, very Anakin of him.
Yeah. Travis says this movie came out at a time where the prequels were still hated and their acknowledgement on screen was sparse. So this scene was a big deal. I agree. I mean, it's
that's fair.
Yeah, it's definitely written as if it's Anakin, not Vader, saying. But it's a combination of both. But it's interesting. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, I think it works though. I like it.
And then, anyways, we cut to Yavin Council. Try not to choke on your Egg McMuffin farts, director. Travis, what would we do without you? We then cut to the Yavin High Council, Rebel High Command. And they are just throwing a little hissy fit. It's so funny. One of the first lines is, disband the fleet. They're like panicking. If it's war you want, I want no part of it. Mm-hmm. Says, what's her name? That senator who's such a stick in the mud.
She's the worst.
It's like, what did you think we were doing here? Like, what did you think you think these X-Wings are just for show? Like, I don't know. What the fuck do you think we were doing here this whole time?
Yeah.
And I get that it's disappointing. Like, you want to avoid war, and it's like, but there's an inevitability to this whole thing. Even Bale is like, there's this sequence where he's like, I have to go back to Alderaan to blow up, but also to tell my people that there will be no peace.
Yeah.
And that line works for me, but and it's sad because where he ends up on the planet when it explodes in 2 days. But in general, I just find that I side so much with Saw and his perspective on this just such an ineffective counsel. They're like, Jin's in front of them saying, well, would you and they're all like, well, do you have the message?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it was destroyed when they blew up the fucking city.
Yeah.
And like,
when they use the Death Star.
when they use the Death Star, and she's like, and they're all like, oh well, what are we just gonna take the word of a criminal? It's like, are you kidding
You're
me?
all criminals.
Yeah. And it's like, do you want me to call? I will play that clip from Rebels again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I'm the only one that I'm a criminal too, or you're a criminal too. I'm the only one who acts like it.
Yeah.
Right. So this whole leadership group is failing in the most important time. This is such an indictment on the Rebel Alliance at this stage, which I know is not like, it's like in its very nascent stages of being a fully formed military operation.
Right.
At the scale that it is, because it's been operating on Yavin for a year. But what the fuck do you mean it's not worth the risk?
Yeah. Like, it's not worth the risk. Yeah. What? Yeah. What is worth the risk at this point?
And then exactly, it's like, and Jin has this great response, like, what chance do we have? The question is, what choice do we have?
Yeah.
We either back down now and live in fear of the Death Star forever.
Yeah.
Or we fucking do something about it now.
Exactly.
And she tries the, the rebellions are built on hope line. That kind of lands on deaf ears.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, it works for Cassian. Obviously, he's like, wow, shit, where did I hear that line before?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I told her that. And then even Mon, this one really annoys me. Mon, the odds are too great.
Right.
Really, Mon? Really? After everything we just saw, this is you draw the line here? Come on. That's like, again, massive indictment on the Rebel Alliance. It's like, pfft.
Yeah, playing it too safe.
Right. But then we get this great, like, I am Spartacus moment where she's like, oh, well, I guess we're fucked. And Cassian's like, well, I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah.
And we get like all these people who are like, they'll back you. I'll back you. And K2, I believe in you.
Yeah.
I was told to say that.
Yeah.
But this sequence with Jin has this great couple moments because it's got Melchi. Gotta have Melchi. He doesn't speak at the scene, but it's fine.
No.
But we know he's there. We get this great line about we've all done terrible things in the name of the Alliance, and name of the rebellion, and that's a great Andor connection because we've seen the terrible things that they've had to do, and that adds so much weight to that line. But and again, just like in this connection to the show, it's because it was worth it. They did it because they thought it was worth it.
Yeah,
that the rebellion was worth it. And then you have this last, I think the best line of this sequence, which is "Welcome home," he says, and gives, and like I think hugs her or whatever. I don't remember exactly what happens, but it reminds me of like that speech he gives to that that worker on the very first arc. One of the very first things that happens in season 2, and he's like talking to that woman who's like helping him steal that TIE fighter.
Right.
And he's like, "You were coming home to yourself."
Yes.
And this idea of like, you're finally doing the right thing, and it's this like freeing feeling of like not feeling like you're having to pretend anymore about any of this bullshit.
Yeah.
And being able to just be who you know in your soul to be, right?
Yeah.
And like this is by the time at this point Jin has come fully 180 around to no, the rebellions, I'm prepared to sacrifice my life for the rebellion.
Right.
And I think that's like very powerful. It is a little fast. That's like if you're going to be nitpicky, it's a little fast. But it's a movie and you don't have as much time as a show.
Yeah.
So they scramble their team. They all leave on the. I love Bodhi's like, it might be tight, but we'll all fit.
Yeah.
I think we could all fit.
We got it. Yeah.
And they get on that stolen transport, and classic Andor moment. We're like, hey, you guys aren't supposed to be on here.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we're fine.
So they all board. They're like, what's your call sign, pilot? And then you get the Leo pointing meme. That's the name of the movie, Rogue One. And you mentioned K2 being like, there is now.
Yeah, there is now.
Yeah, which is great. And that, like, the cynic in me is like, boo, that's lame. The Star Wars fan is me like, sick, that's so cool.
Yeah. Boo, that's lame.
Yeah.
Han Solo.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
Han by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah, Han alone.
Yeah.
How different would that be? So funny. Travis says, the actor who plays Melshi probably had the most unexpected phone call of his life 10 years after he finished Rogue One. Goes from background character to such an important part of the show. I mean, yeah, he is an important part of the show, but I wouldn't say he's like a massive... he has a larger role in that scene at the end of Narkina 5 stuff.
Yeah.
He plays a larger role there. But then in the second season, he's like... he has the one mini arc where he goes to save Clea. But like, other than that, I mean... it's not that huge of a role,
still,
but
though,
you're right.
10 years later,
but
let's come back to Star Wars.
Compared to the amount of lines he had in this movie, it's night and day, 100%.
Yeah.
It is fun to see Melshi here and like get to make that through line. Especially seeing him join the rebellion. I love that moment in Andor where he's like, "That belongs to me."
Yes.
And it's like, oh, he's finally like. Because there's that line that he says to Andor at the end in season 1 where he's like, people need to know. Like, you spread the word. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, like what happened.
And like that's a through line through the show as well. We hear them repeat that, like, we got to get the message out concept. And at the end of Rogue One, at the end of this movie, you get the line, do you think anyone's listening?
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
As a through line connection. And like, I don't know if Tony Gilroy went back and watched this movie and was like, that line is a through line. That line's going to be a through line. That line's going to be a through line. And then reverse engineered it.
You never know.
But like, or it's just like works or coincidental or whatever, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, man, I know I said this before. I just feel I'm so happy to get to talk about all Andor and Rogue One again in this context, and sad at the same time that we won't really get to talk about it again going forward. But it will be forever referenced, maybe for all time. So So yeah, Cassian backs Jyn. They take off. There's a line from Mon and Bale where they're like, "Go talk to your Jedi friend." They're referencing Obi-Wan there. So Scarif. This is when we enter the third act. We introduced to the planetary shield. The shield in Scarif is kind of confusing to me because it's entire planetary shield. Typically, that needs to be powered from the surface.
Right.
Which we know in Andor and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or, not Andor, but
Rebels.
Yeah, Rebels.
Rebels talks about
Rebels talks about it, but like on Endor, not Andor.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's why it's very similar. On Endor, like they go take that shield generator down, all that kind of stuff. And this is an entire planetary shield. So, and the way they take it out is by taking out the gate.
Yes.
So that's a little confusing to me, but that doesn't really matter. It's just like the script needs it to be that way. So that doesn't need to. That's how Star Wars works. It doesn't need to always follow consistent rules.
Yeah.
As long as
it's a different kind of planetary shield.
Yeah.
Testing this one out.
Yeah. Well, and this is an Imperial like secrets.
Yeah.
So like maybe they have like special technology. Yeah. Anyway, they have to come in through the shield gate, pretend to be Imperials. It works. I love a fly casual scene.
Yeah.
In Star Wars. It's like one of my favorite go-to like Star Wars theme. That's not even a theme. It's like a trope. Yeah. Where it's like we got to sneak past the Imperial blockade in some way. We have to send some sort of code or
cloaking
or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Signature codes.
Yeah. But like, I call them fly casual scenes because it's that great moment. I don't know, fly casual.
Yeah.
By Han alone. Says it. So that's great. Big fan of that. Jyn gives a great pep talk here, which I forgot about this, but in rewatch, I'm like, oh shit, this hits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, don't know for sure who did what, but I'm gonna give Tony Kilroy some flowers here because it's great. She talks about how Saw Gerrera said one fighter with a sharp stick can win the day.
Yeah,
love that line because again, she grew up with him, so you get that direct connection. Like here she is being a military leader.
Yes,
it makes her as a more compelling character. It just comes a little late probably. And then she has this whole bit where she's like, we'll take the first thing and then we'll take the next chance and the next chance after that until we're run out of chances.
Yeah.
Or we win until we win or we run out of chances. And I just think that's like a brilliant like philosophy to take for a mission of this type, which is like we only are given as much luck and fortune as we are given.
Yeah.
And that we are fighting a much bigger opponent than ourselves. So it's all about winning each individual battle.
Yeah.
that you can win, and then moving on to the next thing that you can win. And I just think it's compartmentalization. It's like all these ideas that we know are like functional in terms of like how you actually accomplish large tasks.
Yeah.
It just, and then you get this like make 10 men feel like 100 is like a great moment, and then they do, and it's like, oh shit, I get goosebumps as like I'm seeing the explosions go off around the beaches, and I'm just like, oh shit, this is happening, and like the like the battle sequence starts, and I just get so excited because we get the rebel theme comes in like massive way. Not right now, but later we get like ship to ship combat. We get ship to ground combat, which we rarely ever see in Star Wars.
That's true.
And we get this like, and the design of the soldiers, which is very different, I feel like, from what we see of most rebel soldiers, because they're usually wearing those like baseball hats with the flaps.
Right, with the flaps, yeah.
Is like they wearing like World War II helmets.
Yeah.
And it looks really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like that's my entire commentary on that.
I do like when they I think this is like a Bodhi thing too, where they're calling in to.
Oh, yeah, it's like you tell them this thing.
You tell them like we're overrun here.
Right.
So it just sounds like there's like shit happening everywhere. So they're like panicked, right?
Yes.
Even though it's like not that many of them.
Power doesn't panic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is he's like, yeah, look, you get on the line and tell them that that Dock 5 is being overrun.
Yeah. It's wild.
Get back up to Dock 5 immediately.
Yeah. So it makes sense. Like they're splitting up their forces at that point. So it's it's easier for them to like take more of these guys out.
We should back up for a second and say, what is the plan exactly that they're doing here? I think, as far as I can tell, it's to cause chaos.
Yeah, cause a diversion.
And be a diversion.
Yeah.
To pull resources away from the vault where they can get and then again, it's like take the next chance. How do you get the plans out?
Yeah.
Right? If you're lucky, maybe you can get back to the ship. But even then, if they close the shield gate, then you're kind of trapped.
Yeah.
So they need to get the ship. They
need to transmit them.
But then you need to get a signal out, and the only way to do that is to use the big signal tower.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like MacGuffins here, but it really more feels like like military strategy, like goals that they need to achieve to accomplish the larger thing.
Exactly.
So get the message out, get the shield down, transmit the plans, cause a diversion. You know, not necessarily all in that order, but like that's the main goal. And there's like what, 20 of them?
Yeah.
Maybe
a little more, but it's not many.
Yeah. I love how they're like, oh, you must be here for the inspection. Yeah, they're just down here.
Yeah.
Just down here.
Yeah, I know.
And then they're just instantly killed.
Yeah.
I also find it funny how the Imperial officers who are like manning the gate see two completely different people come out wearing their but they have no questions. They're asking no questions there. They've got and Andor's got his like Imperial stance down pat and the hands tucked behind the back and all that stuff. So another thing that like gets me going is when they that like guy on the radios in Yavin, he's like he like intercepts a message and he like runs over to Mon Mothma and he's like, "Mom." He says like "mum," but it's "ma'am" in the in the subtitles, but it's like it's just so British to call
British,
the mum.
the mum,
and he's like, Imperial transmission intercepted, rebel activity on Scarif.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh shit, they did it." and then they do this that always gets me excited, which is someone yelling something and then someone yelling that same thing louder.
Yeah.
Which is like scramble the fleet,
it down the line.
Scramble the fleet, and sick because Raditz, or is it Admiral Raditz?
Yeah.
He's already up in his ship. He's like, oh yeah, he's already ready to go.
Yeah.
he was never gonna listen to you fuckers anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, they scramble the fleet, which and the term "scramble the fleet" is cool as hell.
Yeah.
Then we get R2D2 and 3PO being they're going to Scarif. They never tell us anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, do we really need 3PO here?
Yeah.
But I guess. Oh yeah, I guess we should mention also there are two main references to rebels in Rogue One, which is Chopper appears on the rebel on Yavin.
Right.
You see him, and there's a General Syndulla call over the radio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's important to remember this time in Star Wars was very exciting. Rebels was in full swing. They were doing this connection between this movie. Rogue One was a massive success. Everyone was very excited about Star Wars at this point.
Yeah.
The cynicism was at a low a low level. It became much worse following Episode 8.
Yeah.
Okay. They scramble the fleet. The kind of things really pick up in earnest here. Melshi gets his first line. The battle starts. We find out they get to the vault, but there's this great moment where K2 steals the map. He's like, what is he going to do? He's just lying around, and they just like pull it out of another KX droid. And he's like,
back of his head.
Like, yeah, it's like really disturbing.
Yeah.
The way that it's kind of connects me back to that like Frankenstein's monster thing.
Yeah, it looks very like gross the way
Yeah.
he's doing it, but it's funny though. Yeah.
Yeah, so he steals the map. They get to the vault. I find the vault to be hilarious in its design, and it's like you have to like steer these little things around, and like
it reminds me of those like games you play in the movie theater.
Yeah, the claw machine.
It's kind of like a claw machine, but they're like those newer ones
where
where you have to like get the box
or cut the line or like
like kind of like scoop the prize almost, but it's just like you're trying to get the box of your like
all those games are scams
through a little like whatever
all those
arm
games
that the prize is hanging on.
All those games are scams.
Yeah,
which is bullshit. Why are we selling scams to children?
I don't know.
Anyway, I've never successfully grabbed anything in a claw machine.
It's because they only grab hard like a certain percentage of the time.
That's such bullshit.
Yeah, they don't grab as hard each time.
That's bullshit.
Down. Yeah, it is.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
These are children's games.
They didn't used to be that bad. When I was a kid, I was so good at claw machines. I would win every single time.
Well, that's probably why they
at the
turned
toy ones.
Yeah.
But like, every time.
Rachel's winning all of them. Turn them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, they made them
shitty.
Yeah, they don't always pick up the same strength.
Yeah, it always looks like they're flimsy little fingers.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the vault. They have to figure out the vault. Jin gives a blaster to K2 as this nice, like, final connection moment.
Yeah.
That calls back to an earlier scene where she doesn't. She gets one, but he doesn't.
Right.
He's like the chances of her using that on you are high.
Are high, yeah.
Really high. And yeah, so sad. K2 gets killed. It's great. It's really cool that he's like, you can climb out of there.
Yeah.
I'm locking the vault so they can't get to you.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. And he has this one last like little joke moment where he like tries to like play it off like he's working as an Imperial.
Yeah. He's like, oh, they went that way.
Yeah. And he's like, shoot, and he just shoots them.
Yeah.
So
I do love that Cassian cares more about K2 than he does about Kivik, though.
Oh,
Tivik.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's friends with K2.
Yeah.
Cassian gets shot on the way up. There's also a great moment where he's like, they're going through the project names. Some of those projects we've actually seen now, which is a fun thing. But then she's like, Stardust. He's like, how do you know? It's like, well, I know because it's me.
Because it's me, yeah.
Yeah. Which reminds me of Ben Kenobi being like, I know him because he's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I'd like to imagine that K2 is like, okay, you do have to climb out, but you have to like sneak through this vent that's like opening, closing like a
and
knife.
Shutting. Yeah, it's going to cut you in half.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, you got it. But it's just like such a droid thing being like, just no awareness of like certain dangers because he's not human.
But he does ultimately save them. So
yeah.
Cassian gets shot while climbing up the thing, and he like lands on this like platform out of the way, and you're like, oh, he's dead. If you hadn't seen that whole movie already,
right?
You might think he was dead. And then you cut back out to the main battle. Rebel theme is there because the coolest shot, which they do a version of in Andor, is the stationary camera that's attached to that X-wing that like is in hyperspace and then arrives at the battle, and it's like there's already the battles in mid like combat already.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Those are always good shots. Always good.
And so yeah, like everything's happening. The Rebel theme is going because they're like. They scramble Blue Squadron, who gets decimated. They get basically left behind here.
Right, yeah.
That's just why they're not at the Battle of Andor. And, sorry, not the Battle of Andor. At the Battle of Yavin.
Yavin, yeah.
And so you get Blue Squadron here. You get the captain, like with his little mustache. And he blows up this TIE fighter, and he's got the biggest smile on his face. Yeah. It's so fun. I just love that. Gold Squadron's basically useless. They're like up trying to like take on the Star Destroyers, and they're like completely ineffective essentially until they disable that one. I guess I'll give them that.
Yeah,
that might have been Red Squadron anyway. By the way, the other great part of the like Easter egg here is that Red 5, who becomes Luke,
right,
gets killed.
Yeah.
Here, so it's like, okay, well, we have an open spot at Red 5, so
Yeah.
you can be Red 5.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you know that they used footage from 1977 for some of Gold Squadron and some of the Red Squadron? Yeah.
Oh.
So that they had the same people in those ships.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I did think there's one point
It doesn't look perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever. There's one point where the Star Destroyers are like breaking apart. It kind of looks like Lego to me.
I find that, yeah, I mean, yeah.
There was just one point I was like, ooh, that looked like Lego.
I feel like the Star Destroyers are missing some like color variation.
Yeah,
it's
I think that's what
they're very
is.
like white.
They're too white. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I thought too. I was like,
Yeah.
they're not like there's not enough like gray and depth
It's a
and
really
shadow to them. but
beautiful
it looked
like
too
model or whatever
clean.
they have, but it's like
Yeah.
it looks like it was 3D printed and then like
Yes,
they didn't paint it.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I was like, it like some people look like Lego, but
So there's the scramble to close the shield gate and then a rush to try to get in before they do. I think
Right.
that's awesome.
yeah,
Close the gate, and
Yeah.
it's like and then they're like
Yeah.
zooming in, and then
Zooming
that
in.
one X-wing doesn't make it and doesn't pull up in time. But they get both U-wings and X-wings in, so they can
Yeah.
reinforce the ground troops. It's so cool. And then we get this big space battle. You get what's his name, Admiral
Radis. Yeah,
saying like, let's engage those Star Destroyers and let's see if we can and start probing that shield gate. And it's
Yeah.
like, fuck, that's badass.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's so fun. They released TIE fighters from that shield gate, and the number of
So
TIE
many.
fighters is like, it's like 100 of them.
yeah. There's so
It's
many.
so
of them.
it's like a swarm of mosquitoes.
yeah,
And they get trooper reinforcements to the beach. And then when you get that air to ground combat
Yeah.
and the troopers landing on the beach and they're like, go, 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 go. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm so locked in at this point of the
Right.
movie. I am so I could just rewatch this whole like battle sequence over and over and over again and find new things to look at. It's
it is
so
like
fun.
wildly thrilling.
Yeah. And you get this moment where Krennic he's like, get the garrison going. Like, what are we waiting for? Let's
Yeah.
go. And then he sends his own personal guard into combat. So that's how the Death Troopers get involved.
Right.
And I think that moment's cool where they're just like picking off rebels.
Yeah.
Really cool sequence. I don't know where they filmed this, but like filming, I remember one of the very first like shots from the set that they released was a stormtrooper standing on in the water on a beach.
Oh, okay.
And I remember thinking that's really like, what a visual that we've never seen
Right.
before. Because if you're gonna have an Imperial facility that stores all your secrets, why not make it a tropical paradise?
yeah, exactly.
And then you obviously introduction of the shore troopers, which we hadn't seen up until now. Anyway, they reach the master switch. This is Melshi and some of his troopers, and Baz and Cheered are there, and they get their last stand moment, which is so cool.
Yeah.
I love it. There's that moment where that rebel's like, "I'm gonna make a break for it,"
Yeah, he's
and
like,
then
"I'm going,"
instantly
and then
killed.
shot immediately.
Instantly killed.
Yeah.
But then this, amazing moment where it's like the Force is actively at play here in a movie that doesn't really care about this, because Chirrut just goes out and he just walks through blaster fire as a blind man.
Death Troopers too.
And from Death Troopers, and he just gets up to the console and he's like, oh, there it is, and then like turns the thing, which gets the message, which allows him to get the message out, because it takes all these little moments for this to all work. It's not just what Cassian and Jyn are doing. It's not just what the ships up in orbit are doing. It's like all this stuff is really cool.
Yeah, and literally like all this just to be able to like tell the fleet you have to
take out the shield,
so that we can transmit you the plans.
Right.
Right. It's just like it's the tiniest piece of information that they need to.
Yeah, there's this one little note about how the file size of the transmission is too big, so they need a specific way to do it.
Right.
And it's like it feels a little like clunky, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They don't really spend a lot of time on that. That feels like a leftovers from a previous version of the script.
Yeah.
And you get this great like sequence, I'm one with the Force is with me.
Mm-hmm.
That like has been reused since.
Yeah.
And it's really like touching, this moment. And then you see Chirrut get killed.
Yeah.
And Baz like cries. It's like this whole thing. He's like, and then he repeats the "I'm one with the Force is with me," and you get this moment
takes
where
out so many guys.
And he's just like, and he's using it as like a Gatling gun, but like a shotgun.
Yeah.
His whole backpack gun
It's so
situation
cool.
is very cool.
It's very cool.
But then he also gets to shoot. By the way, Baz also gets to shoot a rocket launcher at an AT-AT.
Yeah.
And
right?
it doesn't even do anything.
You mean
but
an
then
AT-AT?
Yeah, an AT-AT or an
They call them
AT-AT.
AT-ATs in this one. That little like alien guy just yells. He's like AT-AT. And he looks like a
Yeah,
like a
I love
frog.
that. There's like you can just make it both work. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that moment's cool too because he shoots the rocket at it and it hits the head and it turns the head
and then looks
and it
at him
doesn't
again.
do anything, and then immediately an X-wing comes in, boom, 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 and takes it out.
I remember that being a part in the trailer was like them shooting the AT-AT and then it turning and
back.
looking back at
it's
them.
A great visual. It's really cool.
Yeah, because they do kind of look like big dinosaurs, right?
Yeah,
and it's
100%.
it is very interesting to see it kind of used in that way.
And these are like transport AT-ATs that are not fully equipped.
Right.
So some of them have a big open space because there's supposed to be stuff in there.
Yeah.
So that's all that stuff is cool. It's just little world building. But yeah, then you get this last moment with Chirrut and Baz. They kind of go down together.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. Not nice that they die, but it's a touching moment. And
Yeah.
then we get the ion torpedoes on the Star Destroyer, which takes out that Star Destroyer. And at the same time, they get the message up to the ship. I love Raditz, by the way.
Yeah.
Who he gets the message and then he looks down.
Yeah.
He looks to see where the message is coming from. I think that's the design of the Mon Calamari ships where they have this floating chair.
Yeah.
That can look down towards the the surface of the planet. It's just a very cool design.
It's like a boat with when you have the glass bottom of a boat.
Yeah. It's but it's makes sense so you have a better view of the battle and stuff. And he's like, okay, we've got you. We've got your back. And then his whole thing where he's like, Rogue One, may the Force be with you. We're fucking out of here.
Yeah.
It's a little rough, especially because his ship doesn't actually make it, which is another thing that's oops. I guess is it his son is Akbar? Is that how that works, or
no?
They're just not related.
I don't think they're related. No.
Okay, well, sorry, my bad.
Nephew, maybe.
I don't mean to be
speciesist.
I don't mean to be speciesist. Yeah, maybe look that. Yeah, let's look.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, I think Travis is clocked out, so we need someone to step up. Yeah. Yeah, and so. Bodhi gets the stuff out. He has that cool backpack with the cable in it. He hooks it up. There's these rebels making these sacrifices. Okay, not related. No. Okay, cool. They do look very different, obviously.
Yeah,
different colors, but
yeah.
Anyway, I do there's these moments where Bodhi needs to get back to the ship so he can make the call, but then there's these rebels who are I need to give him time to do that, and they sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
In these firefights with the stormtroopers. Very cool stuff. And anyway, he gets the message out. He's like, you gotta get the shield down. We've got the plans. You need to get the shield down.
Yeah.
And that's when he's like, I got a plan. And he's like, call up a Hammerhead cruiser.
So cool.
And then they ram it.
Yeah, ram it into the other one.
Right, full sublight thrusters, and then boom, and then it creates this domino effect where they crash into each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it rips off the whole top half of another Star Destroyer. Good.
And love when the panic on them where they're like, reverse the thrusters.
Reverse thrusters. It's too late. Yeah. And they just go flying when they're when they get hit. All the people in there just go flying.
Swiped.
It's very satisfying to watch that.
It is, yeah.
It's almost as satisfying as that moment where is it Jedi where the A-wing kamikazes into the bridge of that one Star Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
That's also a great moment.
Yeah.
Less great because there's a kamikaze mission there going on. But yeah.
This is the moment, though, that to me looked kind of like Lego.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it looks great still, from a visual, all the effects look great, but just I think that Star Destroyer model lacks something.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe, but I agree. But the reveal of the Star Destroyers in front of the Death Star at the beginning of the movie is a pretty cool.
Very good.
Because the shadow comes off.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, they get the message out, and just as they do, they take the shield down. Jin has a little standoff with
Krennic.
Yeah. There's I think also a little holdover from the old script because we see in the trailer there's an X-wing sequence up, or not an X-wing, a TIE fighter sequence up there.
Right.
A TIE fighter does try to fight, shoot at her on that bridge.
Yeah.
But it's it's so fast that she's oh, he has to realign the dish. So he goes and realigns the dish, and then she comes back. Krennic's there, and then I love this line, which obviously direct tie into Andor. Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
Right. Which is the name of the highest rated Star Wars episode of all time.
Yeah.
Who are you? Actually, it's not a cannot be a coincidence.
No, I don't think it is.
And then she's like, I'm Jyn Erso.
Yeah.
And also you're fucked.
Yeah.
But Krennic, given, fair credit to Krennic, because he's like, all this buys you is, all this costs me is time.
Yeah.
Like this is all inevitable. If you can't get this plans out, all this costs me is time.
Yeah.
And Andor saves the day, shoots him in the back. It looks like, and he does survive, right? He survives long enough to see the Death Star explode the planet.
Yeah. He's long enough to see them murder him.
Yeah.
Your own team. Just
right,
being like,
but
fuck you, Krennic.
Poetic justice.
Yeah.
Because Andor, Krennic dying from anything other than the Death Star is doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, they transmit the plans. And you get, again, another great line. Do you think anyone's listening? Which feels like a direct connection to Andor. But they have faith that the message will be received. They do get the plans, and then they peace out the rebel fleet. They're like, we're out of here. Remember, this is their first victory over the Empire, according to the opening credits, opening crawl of A New Hope. Because they're trapped in there, basically.
Right, yeah.
And they can't really help them. So the Death Star arrives. At this point, it's already in full control by Tarkin.
Yeah.
We get the great "You may fire when ready" line, which he's known for from A New Hope.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What of the fleet? Vader will handle the fleet. Target the base. You may fire when ready." But again, we don't see it travel. It just appears in the sky, which is really cool. Like, look, it's like, what if our moon was 4 times as big and also had a giant
laser beam? Yeah.
It's kind of scary. So I also like how the targeting is so precise that it literally hits the fucking tip top of the tower.
Yeah.
And then lands in, because the angle lands in the ocean a couple kilometers away. I think that's really cool. So Vader's destroyer arrives. And then just as one of the ships is trying to leave and then gets smushed, it smushes one of the rebel transports.
Right.
And so that's a cool little visual too.
Yeah.
Then Jyn and Cassian have their moment on the beach, where he says, "Your father would have been proud."
Yeah.
And it's nice. They hug. They
Yeah.
watch as the Death Star just explosion is coming as this big ball of
big
white
wave, light.
Yeah, and it's sad.
Yeah.
Bix's baby is crying at this moment. Just think about that.
Don't.
Just think about it. Bix's baby is crying right now.
Ugh.
Never get to meet his father, his or her father. A lot of people refer to him as a he, like it's a boy, but I don't think we have any confirmation that it's a he.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. Anyway, we find out that the Rebel flagship was disabled. So one of the Yavin, or sort of one of the Mon Calamari cruisers, doesn't make it out of there. I actually didn't remember that from the first sequence.
No? Yeah, it's Radiss's ship that doesn't
get
out.
They doesn't get out, and that's what they launched the Leia's ship from that ship.
Yeah.
And so he sends a boarding party. Vader's on there. We get the true, the original hallway fight sequence here, which is the most iconic probably visuals from this movie. Although maybe it shouldn't be because there's so many other cool things.
It is though. It's just so badass.
It's cool, but it's almost like this movie was so dedicated to telling this other story, and this feels so detached from that.
Mm-hmm.
Something from a different Star Wars movie, but it's because it's going to lead directly into the next thing. So
the
it's
point,
cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
any thoughts on this finale?
It's so good. Everything about it is, I don't know, and especially I just feel like it's so much better now that we kind of have this backstory from Cassian and everything.
So
it's he has this bigger purpose. Not that he didn't have a bigger purpose to begin with, but he's fulfilling this bigger purpose, and he's doing what he said he needed to do, and
he made it worth it.
Yeah, he made it worth it. Exactly. It's his job is done now, and I guess maybe he can be
rest.
At peace. He can be he can be at rest with the Force.
He can go see his mom.
Yeah, right, and
Marva,
he can hang out
Mama
with Brasso.
Brasso's definitely going to be there.
Nemec, it's
Nemec probably doesn't like him that much.
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them now. So, yeah, it's just it really hits different. afterwards in like such a good way. Like
someone said that there was a moment in the like whether it was the finale of season 2 or in this movie where Andor tells them to hold on as they like take off in one of the U-wings or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like that's him having learned from Nemec being crushed and not saying to hold on. I don't like. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but it's really funny to imagine.
That is funny to imagine that
because he didn't hold on and then he got smushed by a that sucks
by a bunch of money.
Yeah, the money smushed him.
Yeah.
Also some poetic justice there, one might say.
Yeah.
But in a much sadder way.
Yeah.
And then we get CG Leia.
Not as bad as Krennic for some reason.
I thought people think worse.
Really?
I think her face doesn't really move well.
Yeah. I just didn't think she was as...
Well, you don't have to look at her for as long.
That's true. It's very quick. Kind of looks like a ghost.
You liked the line though? Like, what did you get? Hope.
Hope.
Just feels a little on the nose.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Relics are built on hope. It's hope. It brings
but
into a new hope.
She wasn't there for any of those things.
I know, but it's all a thing. It leads right into a new hope.
Yes.
That is their hope.
I think that's why it makes sense. Yeah.
But
yeah, the Vader scene is really badass. It's really cool.
It's so good. Yeah. It's so
take
scary.
it. Take it. I like how they try to open the door.
Yeah.
But if anything, that the door not opening is like what saves them and keeps again another example of the plans just barely
escaping. Yeah.
And then I haven't felt this. What does he say when he gets the Millennium Falcon for the first time on the Death Star? He's like, I'm sensed something I haven't felt since. And he doesn't finish his sentence and he just walks away.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite moments. I definitely laughed at that last time I watched it.
Yeah.
Feeling I haven't felt since.
Yeah, wanders away.
And then he like does this like cape turn.
Big swoosh. Yeah.
But
yeah, in general, I just feel like they did such an incredible job.
It's a really fun movie
with Andor, with Rogue One, like fitting them together, and it's such a fun concept outside of like prequels and sequels and everything. Like like really getting a full story leading up to something is. It's just really great storytelling.
It's like it's Star Wars full storytelling in the sense that we did do lots of time jumps and stuff, so there's a lot of gaps still.
For sure.
Which is classic Star stuff. But like
I
saw someone saying online and be like, if they try to make a movie about the many Bothans that died for the second Death Star plans, it's too much.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a second Death Star at all is dumb.
Yeah.
And then there's a third one, and then it's like, oh man. Yeah, there's another Death Star. They had to get those plans.
Yeah,
and it turns out that was all like a setup anyway. It's like
Starkiller Base,
and they managed to build the second one in 10 years.
Yeah,
or no, sorry, not 10 years. In 5 years, I think it took over a decade for the first one, less than a decade for the second one, which was bigger.
Right.
But I guess once you've done it once, it's like it's just a matter of materials, I guess.
Collect a lot of them from the debris field.
The other thing that was like a direct call out to or Easter egg for what's it called? For A New Hope is to obviously Antilles, Captain Antilles, one of two Captain Antilles, which is not confusing at all. But the pilot of
Wedge
Tantive 4. This isn't Wedge. This is
the other one.
Captain of the Tantive 4, which is the one that's the first ship at the beginning of New Hope.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Technically, this is it. Which one does the Star Destroyer go first and then it's Tantive 4, or is it Tantive 4 and then the Star Destroyer? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, he says to make sure to secure the escape pods because obviously that's what R2 and 3PO used to get to the surface of Tatooine. So it's like, remember that we're going to use these escape pods on this ship very soon.
Very soon.
Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, that's everything.
Great.
Yeah, and that's a long one. But I felt like it's a good capper for everything.
Yeah, right?
It feels like the appropriate coda for
I would agree.
Andor. Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so again, plans. Next week, we'll be doing Tales of the Underworld. And then after that, a break. And then after that, I don't know.
I'll let you know.
And then it was now, and then I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So...
Then
until then,
we'll start dissecting Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the reality TV show.
I don't believe
on Disney Plus.
Okay. I saw the little title card for that, and I was like, "There's no way Mormon wives are that hot." That was my.
They are Mormon.
The Mormon wives are all hot. That's a true fact.
Not all Mormon wives are hot, but
or just the ones for this show.
Yeah, they're all really good looking. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
so
it seems that's what it's like. Okay. All right. Yeah. The Secret Wives of no. Well, I'll never watch that show. If anything, I would do that reality show that was set on Grand Cayman. Which I know some of the people in that one. That one I could do. Yeah, that was also on Disney Plus. It was like something Love in Paradise or whatever, and it was in Cayman. So yeah,
interesting.
But yeah, I also have despite knowing the people on that show, I have no desire to ever watch it. So.
You're a bad friend.
I'm not a bad friend for not watching a bullshit reality show. Look for me if you want to see me on a reality show. Look for me in season 32 or whatever it is of House Hunters International.
Yeah,
where I am featured prominently playing a character who's selling my boat, which is not true to life. It's not what was happening.
Right.
But they did say I was a natural. So. But I didn't get credit. I didn't even get a credit in that. Is that bullshit? I had speaking lines.
Yeah, that is BS.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all to say that it was quite the ride over this Andor sequence and through Rogue One. It's sad to see it go, but it will live on forever because we're never gonna stop talking about it.
It's
so.
true. Yeah.
Until next week, may the Force be with you.